I'm a 29-year-old woman, and not too long ago, I got a call out of the blue from my mom, whom I hadn't talked to in nearly 5 years. The reason she reached out? Well, my sister and her husband were going through something really bad, and she thought I should know. Now, here's where it gets kind of soap opera-ish. The guy who is now my sister's husband was once upon a time going to be my husband. Let's rewind a bit to give you the full picture. My sister, let's call her Melissa, is 27, and she ended up marrying my former fiancé, Lucas, who is also 29. Lucas and I were college sweethearts, and after dating for nearly 5 years, he decided to pop the question. I was over the moon. Lucas was so excited about us getting engaged that he threw a huge party to celebrate our commitment. The party was everything I had dreamed of. Our friends were there, the music was great, and everyone seemed to be having a good time. The night was perfect, or so I thought. At around 10 p.m., the party was still in full swing, but I needed to step outside into the backyard to get better cell phone reception because I wanted to make a call. As I walked out, I expected just a quiet night, but instead, I stumbled upon a scene that looked like it came right out of a movie, except it was my life. There, in the dim light of the backyard, was Lucas and Melissa. And they weren't just talking, they were kissing passionately. It took a moment for the shock to register, and in those few seconds, they didn't even notice I was there. I stood frozen, my heart sinking as the reality set in. When they finally saw me, they instantly pulled apart, but the damage was done. The image of them together was burned into my mind. Without thinking, I ran. I dashed to my car, drove off into the night, and didn't stop until I reached the nearest hotel. Sitting in that hotel room, my emotions were a whirlwind. Anger, sadness, disbelief. It felt like a nightmare. Later that night, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Melissa. She was apologizing, saying she was really sorry, but she had fallen in love with Lucas. She confessed that their affair had been going on for quite some time. Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, Lucas texted me. He explained that he proposed to me in a desperate attempt to forget Melissa, hoping that committing to me would end his feelings for her. Obviously, that plan had failed miserably. He admitted that what he felt for Melissa was too strong, and that in his heart, it was always her. I stayed at that hotel for a few days, each day grappling with the betrayal. It felt unreal, like some sort of cruel joke life was playing on me. Here I was, supposed to be planning a wedding, and instead, I was trying to piece together my broken heart, wondering how the two people I trusted most could hurt me so deeply. It was a tough time, and even thinking back to it now stirs up a lot of emotions. After those tough days alone at the hotel, I knew I had to face reality again. I couldn't just stay away forever. I needed to go back, pick up my belongings, and get back to my job. I couldn't afford to lose it over personal issues. So, after gathering all the strength I could muster, I returned home. What I walked into felt surreal. My whole family was there, including Lucas, as if they were just waiting for my return. Under different circumstances, it might have seemed touching, like they all cared and were waiting to support me. But knowing the truth made it feel like a twisted scene from a play. Since I'd left the party, my phone had been buzzing nonstop. Everyone was trying to reach me, sending texts, asking if I was okay, pleading for me to come back and talk. I hadn't answered any of them. I wasn't ready. So you can imagine the shock and the flurry of emotions when I walked through the door. Everyone rushed over, giving me hugs and expressing relief at seeing me safe. Melissa, of all people, was the first to reach me. She threw her arms around me, tears streaming down her face, as if she was the victim, as if she hadn't shattered my world. I was so stunned by everything that I couldn't even move. I just stood there, frozen, while everyone else buzzed around me with concern and questions. Once the initial commotion settled down, I found my voice. I cleared my throat, silencing the room, and announced plainly that I was only there to collect my things and that I'd be moving out for good. The air thickened with tension at my words. Lucas, who had been silent up until then, finally spoke up. His voice was steady, almost resigned, as he told everyone that there was no need for me to leave my own home. He'd already packed his belongings and was planning to move in with Melissa. Hearing him say that, declaring his decision so publicly, was both a relief and a fresh wave of pain. It was an end and a beginning, his words cementing the harsh reality of our broken engagement and the new path he was choosing without me. Since now everything was out in the open anyway, my family, my parents, my aunt, my dad's younger sister, who has lived in the same house ever since her husband passed away, actually had wide smiles on their faces, even though there was nothing to smile about, at least not according to me. Melissa was standing beside Lucas in an awkward side hug and looked at me very sadly, but still smiling. I couldn't take it anymore and decided to ask my family what the heck they were even smiling about because as far as I was concerned, Melissa had just broken up my engagement and stolen my boyfriend of almost 5 years. There was really nothing very funny or sweet about this. My mother chose to speak up at that point and told me that they couldn't go back in time and change the past, but they could accept the future. And they knew that the future had Melissa and Lucas together in it. Granted, it was a relationship that had formed out of cheating, and they did feel sorry about it. But they also wanted me to understand and accept that this was for the best. Melissa said that she was very sorry for taking my boyfriend away from me, but she couldn't help falling in love with him. She wished that she could have told me earlier, and I didn't have to find out this way. But apparently they were madly in love and wanted to spend their lives with each other. Then the two of them kissed right in front of me, and my mother had the audacity to even wipe a tear from her eye. I snapped and told them that this wasn't supposed to be sentimental or emotional, and that what they were doing was disgusting. To my surprise, my family seemed to get annoyed with my behavior and told me that I was being too bratty about the situation. Instead of being happy for my sister, I was making this all about myself, and they didn't approve of my behavior. I was stunned by their attitude about this and told them all to get the heck out of my house. That very moment I couldn't, for the life of me, understand how they were defending what Melissa and Lucas had done while making me out to be the bad guy and act as though I was overreacting. My father intervened and told me not to act like a child because these things happen and I should take it in my stride. He wanted me to celebrate that my sister had finally found her soulmate instead of being jealous of her. They were literally all acting insane and I couldn't deal with it anymore. So I just said, screw it. Went into my room, packed some of my things, and left yet again without even speaking to them or waiting to hear them out. Even as they called out my name and told me not to go. I really didn't have anything left to say to them because it was very clear to me that they cared more about Melissa and her happiness than about me, or even about what was right and wrong. They were so caught up in trying to justify what Melissa had done that they completely forgot that I was also a human being with real feelings as well. After that day, my family tried to contact me several times, but I never responded to them because I didn't think that I owe that to them. A couple of weeks later, I even received an invitation to Melissa and Lucas's wedding, which I declined. Obviously, all the common friends that Lucas and I had also declined the wedding invitation in solidarity with me, and even the couple of relatives who knew the truth refused to interact with my family after they learned how they had treated me in the aftermath of the party. It's been 5 years and I've pretty much cut them out of my life entirely. They occasionally tried to weasel their way back into my life by wishing me well on my birthday or New Year, but I always ignored them. I never even blocked any of them, even though I did remove them from my following and friends list. But since I have a public account, they could see what I was up to, which is what I wanted. I wanted them to see, and I wanted them to know that I was leading a fabulous life and keep burning with jealousy. It was petty, but it was the least I could do after how they screwed me over. And up until recently, I barely even had a clue of what they'd been up to in the last couple of years. My mother called me about 4 days ago from a number that I didn't have saved. When I answered the call and realized that it was my mom on the other end, I immediately tried to hang up. But she begged me desperately for one chance to talk to me because apparently they were in dire need of help and I agreed to talk to her for just a couple of minutes. But only because she sounded so upset and my humanity didn't allow me to turn my back on her at that moment. She told me that Melissa Lucas had started a business of their own a couple of years ago, but it was failing badly, and their investors were all backing out because they were failing to make any profit at all. So they borrowed more money, but even that didn't help their business. And now they were neck deep in debt, and the loan sharks were all after them. They were being hounded by everyone from their employees to their investors and the people they had borrowed money from. My mother knew that I lived a luxurious lifestyle and could afford to help them out. So she had turned to me as a last resort and was begging me to help them out by loaning them some money so they could pay off their debts. And it was no small amount either that she was asking me for. It was almost $75,000 that she wanted me to give us so she could help Melissa and Lucas out. I asked her, why wasn't Melissa calling me if she needed help, and why was she making my mother speak to me on her behalf? So my mother told me that Melissa and Lucas didn't even know that she was coming to me for help, as they had given her strict instructions not to approach me, because I guess we all still remember exactly what happened 5 years ago. Melissa didn't want me to know any of this, and wasn't ready to take help from me. But my mother didn't know anybody else who would have that kind of money and would give it to them at the drop of a hat. A couple of months had already passed, and Melissa and Lucas were struggling to even put food on the table. My parents were helping them all they could, and even Lucas's family were trying to give them all that they possibly could. But it was just not enough, and even they had to be able to support themselves in the future. So it was impossible for them to just give away all the money that they'd saved over the years, especially because most of my family was retired and so were Lucas's parents. And that's why my mother, with no other option left, had called me to request me for help. Now I could afford to help them out, but I really didn't want to. Melissa was right for not contacting me to ask for help. They'd lost the right to make any demands from me the day that they cheated on me. I told my mother that I couldn't help them, and even if I could, I wouldn't. My mother sounded very upset and told me that I was being cruel, and I needed to think about my family. I told her that Melissa and Lucas hadn't thought about me when they had that affair, and neither did my family think about me while they were supporting the two of them. So right now, there was no need for me to think about them either. I'd worked hard to get to the position where I am today, and I wasn't about to just go and drop $75,000 on two people who didn't even deserve it. My mother then began to cry on the phone and told me that she had never expected me to grow up to be so selfish and claimed that my sister and her husband would end up in big trouble if I didn't help them out. I said that it was just too bad, but I couldn't help them. And then I hung up. Since then, my mother has been sending me several texts every hour, begging me to reconsider and think about my sister for once. She said that this was not the time for petty revenge and that the trouble that Melissa was in was very serious. So if I didn't help her now, I really would regret it in the future. She's being crazy, and I don't understand what to say to her because I don't want to feel like the bad guy here either. Am I the a-hole for not helping my sister out financially after she stole my fiancé 5 years ago? Update 1. I finally made the decision to block my family's phone numbers and social media accounts. I hadn't done that earlier for two main reasons. First off, there was a part of me that wanted them to see what my life was like without them. I kind of hoped they'd see my posts and updates and feel a little bit of regret for how things went down between us. Maybe even miss me a little. Secondly, I was worried about what might happen if I cut them off completely and then something bad happened to them. I thought I might end up regretting not being in touch if, say, there was an emergency or something serious happened. But now I've reached a point where I don't care about those things anymore. Honestly, I think I should have blocked them 5 years ago when everything first went south. I've been asking myself why I kept the lines open this long. Initially, it might have been out of pettiness. I admit that. Like by not helping my sister when she needed it, I was sort of trying to prove a point. But refusing to help them now isn't about being petty. It's about being logical and protecting myself. Over the years, they've wasted a lot of money. Money that they never managed to earn back. It's been one financial disaster after another with them. This time they came to me asking for $75,000, which is no small sum. Sure, I'm doing okay financially, but that doesn't mean I can just hand over such a huge amount of money without expecting to get it back. Think about it. Even if a close friend of mine was in trouble and needed that kind of money, I'd still expect them to pay me back eventually. But with my family, things are even more complicated. We're not close anymore. They haven't acted like they care about me in years, and based on their track record, there's no way they'd be able to repay me. So giving them the money just doesn't make sense. It would be like throwing it into a black hole, expecting it never to return. I talked this over with some of my friends to get their take on it. I wanted to see if I was being too harsh or unreasonable, but all of them agreed with me. They said that not giving my family the money was the right thing to do. It's not about getting back at them for past hurts. It's simply about being sensible. They pointed out how absurd it was for my family to even expect financial help from me after everything they've put me through. So now, I've taken the step to block them. This means my mother can't call me up anymore and try to guilt trip me into doing things for them. It's a relief, really. I feel like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I don't have to worry about their drama or getting dragged into their messes anymore. I can just focus on my own life and move forward without that constant stress. It's like I've finally closed a long, exhausting chapter of my life, and now I'm ready to start a new one. Update 2. Hi guys. So something really big happened today. I was at work when I received a call from my neighbor saying that there was a couple outside my house who was screaming for me to come out and talk to them. My neighbor told me that they seemed pretty crazy and had been screaming at the door for about an hour, refusing to leave. I asked her for a description of them, but in my heart I already knew who it was. She told me how they looked, and it just confirmed that I was indeed going to run into Melissa and Lucas when I got back home. My neighbor told me that I needed to come back and deal with this because she didn't think that these two were up to any good. And I agreed when it was Melissa and Lucas that we were talking about. They could never be up to any good. So I thanked her and started driving back home immediately because I couldn't risk them getting into my house at any cost. I got there in about 15 minutes, luckily, and caught them in the act of trying to break into my house by picking the lock on my door. I pulled up in front of my house and asked them what the hell they thought they were doing. And then I tried to call the police immediately, but Lucas was as quick as lightning and he rushed over to me and knocked the phone out of my hands. Melissa also walked over to me and told me that they were here just to talk and they didn't want anything from me. Not at the moment, at least. I told them to make it quick and also said that they shouldn't expect me to invite them inside. So whatever they had to talk about had to be discussed out there in the yard. They seemed to be okay with that, which was a relief because I really didn't think that it would be a good idea to invite those two inside close quarters. They already seemed pretty hostile, so I didn't know what to expect since they said they didn't want anything from me. Melissa started talking and told me that my mother had told her about the phone call and how I'd ignored the subsequent texts from her and then even blocked them off. She told me that the way I was behaving was very unfair and that it had been 5 years since then, so I should really be over it by now. Instead, I was resorting to such silly and dramatic acts just to get a little bit of attention from my family. She said that she felt very insulted because of how I had refused to help them, and that's what she was here to talk to me about. She said that she'd been able to arrange the money for now, but there was a very strong chance that she might need more in the future. And because she'd sold their house and all their jewelry to get the money this time, she obviously couldn't do that again. And so she had to know that she could fall back on me and rely on me for help when she needed it. I told her that, no, she couldn't, and she must not count on me at all under any circumstances, because I hate her and her husband with a passion. I was so angry that I also told her that it was taking me a lot of restraint to not hit her at the moment, so it would be in their best interests to just leave. Lucas had the audacity to say that they weren't going anywhere until I signed the document that would confirm that I would give them money in the future whenever they needed it. I mean, it wouldn't even be valid if I was forced to sign it under pressure. I'm pretty sure there are laws against it, and also they must be insane if they actually thought that they could manipulate me into signing something like that. I told both of them to get the hell out, and Melissa pushed me saying that I had to help them, because apparently I owed this to them since they were family, and I couldn't just run away from my responsibilities like this. I was shocked that she'd actually pushed me, and I was about to slap her. But I controlled the urge to do that because things would only get worse if I got violent. Instead, I decided to grab my phone, which had fallen to the ground when Lucas knocked it out of my hand and made a run for it. I climbed into my car as quickly as I could and then drove off without even bothering to check my rearview mirror. I hadn't bothered to shut off the engine when I had left the car, so it was still running, and it didn't take me much time to get a head start on them. Obviously, they were not stupid enough to chase after me on foot, so they just waited there at my house, which is pretty unfortunate. As soon as I was a safe distance away from them, I decided to call the police and tell them what was going on. And then I drove back to my house just in the nick of time before the police had already arrived within 20 minutes. I feel them in on everything, and they arrested and took Melissa and Lucas away. I knew that the charges weren't that serious and they would get off pretty easily, but it was still worth it because at least they were taken away and I didn't have to waste any more of my time with them. It's been a couple of hours since then, and I haven't heard from anyone in my family, which is strange because I'd figured out that by now at least one of them would have tried to contact me from some other numbers, but they haven't. So I'm guessing that they're either just over everything and not going to try and get under my skin again, or they're just waiting it out and biding their time so they can contact me later when things are a little less tense. Update 3. Hi. So the last update was about a week ago, and I honestly thought I had finally shaken off all the family troubles after calling the cops on Melissa and Lucas. I was pretty sure that was going to be the end of their shenanigans and they wouldn't bother me again. But oh boy, was I wrong. Just when I thought I could chill and not worry about family drama anymore, guess who shows up at my doorstep? My parents? Yep, out of the blue, they popped up at my house yesterday. They looked pretty humble and not at all like the pushy, arrogant vibes I got from Melissa and Lucas. So I thought, okay, maybe I should hear them out. And I let them in. As soon as we sat down in the living room, my mom started crying. It was like a dam had broken. She was really emotional and immediately started apologizing for ever taking Melissa's side over mine. It was a lot to take in right from the start. My dad, who usually keeps his emotions in check, had a serious tone as he filled me in on what had been going on with them. He explained that after they found out about Melissa and Lucas getting arrested, because of their nasty behavior and also because they had physically pushed me, they were completely shocked. He said it was like a wake-up call for them. They couldn't look at Melissa and Lucas the same way anymore and had decided to cut them off completely. My mom, still crying, nodded in agreement with what my dad was saying. She was really torn up about the whole thing. My dad continued, admitting they were really sorry for siding with Melissa in the past, especially since I was the real victim in all this. They realized they had messed up big time by not supporting me when I needed them the most. Listening to all this, I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me was relieved they finally saw the truth, but another part of me felt like it was just too little, too late. I've gotten used to living my life on my own terms now, without depending on them or putting them before my own well-being. So as much as I appreciated their visit and their apologies, I just couldn't promise them that I would jump right back into trying to mend our relationship. It felt like trying to glue back together a broken vase. Possible, but it's never going to be the same again. I told them that while I appreciate them finally coming to their senses, I've moved on, and I really didn't see the point in trying to salvage a relationship that felt beyond repair. Even if they are my parents, I just wasn't up for the emotional roller coaster again. They seemed a bit taken aback by my response. They tried to argue that we could fix things if we really wanted to, but that's where the crux of the issue lay. I didn't want to anymore. I just wanted some peace and quiet, to live my life without this constant drama. I expressed to them that I respected their efforts to make amends, but as far as I was concerned, I was done with all the past chaos. They looked pretty disappointed, and I could tell they weren't expecting me to cut ties this firmly. However, they finally got up to leave after a bit more discussion. On their way out, they asked if I could at least unblock them so they could keep in touch, maybe a text here and there. I agreed to unblock their numbers, which honestly felt weird after everything that had happened, but I did it because part of me thought it might be good to leave a small door open just in case. But yeah, that's the full update. Quite a turn of events, huh? Update 4. Life has settled into a new normal since the last time I updated. I've had a lot of time to reflect on everything that's happened, and I've been focusing on personal growth and finding peace within myself. After the drama with my family, I've taken steps to ensure that my life remains as calm and positive as possible. Recently, something unexpected happened. While I've kept communication with my parents to a minimum, just occasional text to check in, they reached out with an invitation to a small family gathering. It's the first time they've tried to include me in anything like this since our falling out. They assured me it would be low-key, with just a few close relatives, and notably, Melissa and Lucas would not be there. I was hesitant at first. The idea of stepping back into a family setting after all that had transpired was daunting. However, a part of me was curious to see if there had been any real change in their attitudes and behavior. So I decided to accept the invitation, setting some boundaries for myself and making it clear that I would leave if I felt uncomfortable at any point. The gathering was surprisingly pleasant. My relatives who were present had been supportive of me through the tough times, and it was refreshing to catch up without any underlying tension. My parents were respectful of my space and made an effort to make the environment welcoming. It was clear they were trying to make amends and rebuild some form of relationship. During the event, my father took a moment to speak with me privately. He expressed genuine remorse for their past mistakes and acknowledged that they had failed me when I needed them most. He didn't make excuses for their behavior, but instead focused on how they hoped to move forward, even if it meant taking small steps. My mother, too, had her moment with me. She shared how the entire situation had been a learning experience for them and how it had made them reevaluate many of their choices and relationships. She hoped that, in time, we could find a new way to connect, even if it wasn't like before. Leaving the gathering, I felt a mix of emotions. It was comforting to know that there was still a part of my family that could show love and support. Yet I was also cautious, not ready to fully let down my guard just yet. I've learned a lot about boundaries and self-respect through these experiences, and I'm not willing to compromise those for anyone, not even family. As for Melissa and Lucas, I haven't had any direct contact with them since the incident at my house. I've heard through the grapevine that they're trying to mend their ways and rebuild their lives, but I've kept my distance. Some relationships are just not meant to be mended, and I believe their betrayal falls into that category. In conclusion, this chapter of my life has taught me about resilience and the importance of self-care. I've come out stronger and more aware of my own needs and limits. Life is too short to spend it in constant turmoil, and I'm committed to spending mine surrounded by positivity and people who genuinely care. Here's to new beginnings and the continuation of a journey towards peace and happiness. My dad denied my raise for 3 years, even though I was running the entire company and made my golden brother the CEO 2 weeks after his graduation. So I started consulting for his competitor. They pay 5 times more, and now they're collapsing and begging me to come back. Sup, Reddit. Didn't think I'd be posting here, but my family situation has gone completely nuclear, and I need to get this off my chest. My dad spent 3 years denying me raises while I basically ran his entire company, then handed my barely graduated golden child brother the CEO position. I walked out, started consulting for their biggest competitor, and now they're hemorrhaging money and begging me to come back. Spoiler alert, that's not happening. I, 31 male, a manufacturing engineer who's been working at my father's metal fabrication company since I graduated college at 22. My younger brother Tyler, 26 male, just graduated 2 weeks ago. Took him 6 years to finish his business degree because he changed majors 3 times and failed enough classes that he had to retake them. Meanwhile, I graduated in 4 years with honors in mechanical engineering, passed my PE exam on the first try, and have been the backbone of Dad's company ever since. Let me paint you a picture of my family dynamic. Dad owns a mid-sized metal fabrication company in Ohio. Started it 30 years ago, built it from nothing. I respect that grind. What I don't respect is how he's treated me versus Tyler our entire lives. Classic golden child situation where Tyler could do no wrong and I could do no right. Growing up, Tyler was the kid who got new bikes and video game consoles for Christmas, while I got practical gifts like clothes and school supplies. Tyler got his first car bought outright at 16, a nearly new Honda Civic. I had to work all summer at a hardware store and save every penny to buy a beat-up truck with 180,000 miles on it. When Tyler totaled that Civic 2 years later driving drunk, Dad bought him another one. No consequences, no questions asked. When I asked Dad why Tyler got everything handed to him, I got the classic, "Life isn't fair, son" speech. But apparently life was plenty fair for Tyler. Sports equipment, expensive clothes, spring break trips, Tyler got it all. I learned real quick that the way to get anything from Dad was to work for it. So that's what I did. I worked my ass off in high school, got a full ride to Ohio State for engineering. Tyler barely graduated high school, went to community college first because his grades weren't good enough for a 4-year school, then transferred to a state university where he proceeded to party his way through a 6-year undergraduate degree on Dad's dime. Dad paid his tuition, his rent, his car, everything. Meanwhile, my full ride still required money for housing and food, which I covered by working part-time at a machine shop. The favoritism didn't stop when we became adults. It got worse. When I graduated and started working for Dad's company, I thought finally, I could prove my worth. I started as a junior engineer making $45,000 a year. Not great for an engineer with a degree, but it was family business, and Dad promised me opportunities to grow. I believed him because I was naive and still wanted his approval. I jumped in with both feet, learned every machine in that shop, spent nights redesigning workflows to improve efficiency, studied lean manufacturing principles and Six Sigma methodology on my own time. Within 6 months, I'd reduced our scrap rate by 23% and cut production time on our most common parts by 15%. That translated to about $300,000 in annual savings for a company pulling in roughly $8 million a year in revenue. Dad's response to my first annual review? "Good work, son. Keep it up. No raise, no bonus. Just a pat on the back." Year 2, I developed a new process for our aluminum extrusion line that increased capacity by 30% without additional capital investment. Designed and implemented a quality control system that virtually eliminated customer complaints. We landed 2 major contracts specifically because clients were impressed by our quality metrics and delivery times, both things I'd personally overhauled. Our revenue jumped to $10.5 million. Annual review time. "Really proud of what you're doing here, but we need to watch expenses right now. Maybe next year. Still making $45,000. I asked about at least matching market rate for engineers with my experience. Dad said family business meant sometimes making sacrifices. Meanwhile, Tyler was in college posting Instagram stories from bars and music festivals, failing Intro to Business Economics for the second time. Year 3. Our company landed the biggest contract in its history, $2.3 million deal with an automotive supplier. I wrote the proposal. I designed the custom tooling. I project managed the entire thing from start to finish. We delivered ahead of schedule and under budget. The client was so impressed they signed a 3-year extension worth another $7 million total. I also trained 3 new engineers Dad hired, upgraded our CAD systems, and spent 6 months negotiating with suppliers to reduce our material costs by 12%. Revenue hit $12.8 million. Annual review. "You're really valuable to this company. Essential, really." I asked for a raise to $65,000. Still below market rate, but closer. Dad hemmed and hawed, said cash flow was tight because of expansion costs, then suggested that if I really needed more money, maybe I should cut back on frivolous spending. I lived in a one-bedroom apartment and drove a 10-year-old truck. My frivolous spending was a gym membership and occasionally buying lunch instead of packing it. But sure, Dad, I was the problem. That same month, Dad bought Tyler a new F-150 as a college graduation gift. Tyler hadn't even finished yet, still had one semester left. The truck cost $48,000, more than I'd made in a year. I started seriously questioning my life choices. Year 4. I'm essentially running operations at this point. Dad's in his early 60s and semi-retired, spending most of his time golfing and traveling with Mom. The company is humming along at peak efficiency. We're up to $14.2 million in revenue with 18% profit margins, well above industry standard. I'm overseeing 12 employees, managing multiple major client relationships, and handling everything from production scheduling to strategic planning. I finally put my foot down. Market rate for a manufacturing engineer with my experience and responsibilities in Ohio is $85,000 to $95,000. I was still making $45,000. For context, some of the guys running CNC machines were making more than me. I wrote up a detailed proposal outlining my contributions, included comparisons to industry salary data, and requested $80,000. Still on the lower end, but reasonable. Dad's response? This feels like you're holding the company hostage. After everything we've given you, we hadn't given me anything. I'd earned every dollar. I'd transformed his company from a decent small business into a genuinely competitive mid-sized manufacturer. But pointing that out got me nowhere. That's when Tyler graduated. Finally. 6 years, 2 major changes, 3 failed semesters that required retakes, and a 2.4 GPA later, he had a bachelor's degree in business administration. His crowning achievement was apparently not getting expelled. 2 weeks after graduation, Dad called a company meeting, announced Tyler would be joining the team as chief operating officer, would be learning the business from top to bottom before taking on a leadership role. The COO title was complete bullshit. Tyler didn't know the difference between a lathe and a mill, couldn't read a blueprint, had never managed anyone or anything. But there he was, strutting into the office in his new suits, acting like he'd earned something. His starting salary? $75,000. Plus company car. Plus performance bonuses tied to metrics I'd established and was maintaining. Tyler was making more than me on day one, despite having 0 experience and 0 contribution to the company's success. I kept my mouth shut. Figured maybe Tyler would surprise everyone. Maybe he'd actually work hard and prove himself. Maybe Dad would finally see that merit should matter more than birth order. I was wrong on all counts. Tyler spent his first month learning the business by showing up at 10 a.m., taking 2-hour lunches, and leaving by 3 p.m. He'd walk through the shop occasionally, interrupt people working to ask basic questions that showed he hadn't bothered to read any of the materials I'd prepared for him, then disappear back to his office to scroll through his phone. The few times he tried to contribute ideas, they were disasters. He wanted to switch suppliers to save 3% on steel without understanding that the cheaper supplier had quality control issues that would cost us 10 times that in rework and scrap. He suggested streamlining our inspection process, meaning eliminating critical quality checks, because it slowed things down. He tried to promise a client a delivery timeline that was physically impossible, and I had to spend hours explaining manufacturing constraints to both him and the very angry client. I was working 60-hour weeks cleaning up Tyler's messes while he collected his paycheck and took credit for anything that went right. Month 2 of Tyler's employment, I asked Dad for a meeting, laid it all out. My contributions over 4 years, my below-market salary, Tyler's lack of contribution and higher compensation. I requested $80,000 again, which was $5,000 less than Tyler was making despite my 4 years of experience and proven results. Dad's response, Tyler needs time to find his footing. You need to be patient and supportive. This is about family legacy. I asked point blank what I needed to do to earn a fair salary. Dad got uncomfortable and said, sometimes being part of a family business means making sacrifices. Tyler's going to run this company someday. You should be happy being part of building something bigger than yourself. There it was. Tyler's leadership role wasn't some distant future plan. It was already decided. I could work myself to death improving the company, but Tyler would inherit the kingdom I'd built. That night, I updated my resume for the first time in 4 years. 3 weeks later, Dad called another company meeting. My stomach dropped before he even started speaking because I knew what was coming. Tyler was being promoted to CEO. Dad would remain chairman, but Tyler would handle day-to-day operations and strategic direction. Tyler had worked there for exactly 2.5 months. He still couldn't explain what half our machines did. He'd yet to successfully complete a single project or initiative. His strategic direction consisted of implementing Pizza Fridays and suggesting we get a company ping-pong table. But there he stood, grinning like an idiot while Dad talked about fresh perspectives and new generation leadership and carrying on the family legacy. Not once did Dad mention the 4 years I'd spent transforming the company. Not once did he acknowledge my contributions. After the meeting, several employees came to me privately. They were worried. They knew Tyler was incompetent. They knew I was the one actually running things. They wanted to know what this meant for them. I told them I'd let them know soon. That night, I sat in my shitty apartment and made a choice. I'd spent 4 years chasing Dad's approval, working for below-market wages, building his company while he groomed Tyler to take credit for it all. I was done. I called Mark Chen. Mark runs the biggest manufacturing consulting firm in the Midwest. His company, Apex Manufacturing Solutions, works with mid to large manufacturers to optimize operations, implement new technologies, and solve complex engineering challenges. We'd crossed paths at a few industry conferences, and he'd mentioned multiple times that if I ever wanted to leave Dad's company, he'd be interested in talking. We met for coffee 2 days later. I laid out my experience. The process improvements, cost reductions, quality enhancements, client relationships I'd developed. Showed him the numbers backing it all up. Mark didn't even blink. I can start you at $160,000 base salary plus quarterly performance bonuses. Most of our consultants at your level are pulling in $200,000 to $220,000 total compensation first year. You'd be traveling about 40%, working with clients on projects ranging from 3 months to 2 years. We'll train you on implementation methodologies, project management, client relations, basically everything you've been doing, but with actual recognition and proper compensation. 5 times what Dad was paying me, plus bonuses, plus actual growth opportunities, plus working with competent people instead of cleaning up after Tyler. I accepted on the spot. 2 weeks' notice felt too generous, but I wanted to leave professionally. I typed up my resignation letter that night. Short and sweet. Effective 2 weeks from today, I'm resigning from my position. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll ensure a smooth transition of my responsibilities. I didn't mention the pay disparity. Didn't mention Tyler. Didn't mention the 4 years of watching Dad hand everything to his golden child while treating me like hired help. Just clean and professional. Handed it to Dad the next morning. He read it, set it down, and asked, "Is this about money?" "It's about fair compensation for fair work," I said. "I've been running operations here for years at entry-level pay, while you promoted Tyler to CEO after 2 months. I found somewhere that values my contributions." Dad's face went red. "After everything this family has done for you." "What did this family do for me?" I interrupted. "I worked here for 4 years, transformed your operations, and got 0 raises. Tyler worked here for 2 months, contributed nothing, and got made CEO. Don't talk to me about family." He tried the guilt trip, the loyalty speech, the "you're being selfish" routine. I'd heard it all before. This time, I didn't care. 2 weeks, I said. I'll document everything I can. After that, good luck. Those 2 weeks were hell. Dad alternated between trying to guilt me into staying and being passive-aggressively hostile. Tyler acted like I'd personally betrayed him by leaving. He actually said, "How am I supposed to run things if you're not here?" That's when I realized Tyler thought I'd always be there. The plan was never for Tyler to learn the business. The plan was for Tyler to have the title and salary while I did all the actual work. I was supposed to be his shadow COO, the guy who made him look good while he collected the credit and compensation. Not anymore. My last day, I handed over documentation on every major system, process, and client relationship. I spent an hour with Tyler trying to explain critical things he needed to know. He kept checking his phone and saying, yeah, I got it," to things he clearly didn't get. I shook hands with the shop floor guys who'd become friends over the years. They knew what was up. A few of them asked if I was hiring wherever I was going. I told them to keep in touch. Dad didn't even bother saying goodbye. Tyler gave me this smug look like I was making a mistake and he'd be fine without me. I walked out of that building for the last time with a weird mix of emotions. Relief, mostly. Some sadness. But mostly just this incredible lightness. Like I'd finally dropped a weight I'd been carrying since childhood. Started at Apex Manufacturing Solutions the following Monday. First week was orientation and training. Met the team, all experienced engineers and operations specialists who actually knew their shit. My direct boss, Sarah, had a PhD in industrial engineering and 20 years of experience. She treated me like a competent professional, not a free labor source. My first project was with a Tier 1 automotive supplier, having major quality control issues. Spent 3 months on-site diagnosing problems, redesigning their inspection protocols, and training their team. Client was thrilled. Renewed for a follow-up project immediately. My first quarter bonus alone was $18,000, more than a third of what Dad paid me annually. The work was challenging and rewarding. I was learning constantly, working with cutting-edge manufacturing technology, solving complex problems for clients who actually appreciated the solutions. And I was making real money for the first time in my adult life. Meanwhile, I'd hear things through industry contacts about Dad's company. Nothing direct, just whispers at conferences, comments from suppliers. Things weren't going great. Month 3 after I left, I ran into one of Dad's suppliers at a trade show. He mentioned they were having issues getting timely responses on orders. Lots of confusion about specifications. Projects running behind schedule. Month 5, a former colleague texted me. Said they'd lost 2 major clients. One because Tyler promised an impossible delivery timeline, and they missed it by 6 weeks. Another because quality issues had crept back in and they'd shipped defective parts. Month 6, I got a LinkedIn message from Janet, Dad's longtime office manager. She'd quit. Said the place was chaos. Tyler was making terrible decisions. Dad was rarely there anymore, and nobody knew what they were doing. 3 of the senior shop guys had left for competitors. Morale was in the toilet. I felt a little bad. Not for Dad or Tyler, they'd made their choices. But for the good people still working there who were suffering because of incompetent leadership. Month 8, Apex landed a major contract with one of Dad's biggest competitors, Precision Metalworks. They wanted to implement the exact same lean manufacturing and quality control systems I developed at Dad's company. The owner, Bill Stevens, specifically requested me for the project after hearing about my background. The money was incredible, $230,000 total compensation for the year. But more than that, I was helping Precision Metalworks become a more formidable competitor to Dad's company. We were implementing systems that would let them deliver faster, cheaper, and higher quality than Dad's shop could match in its current state. I'm not going to pretend I didn't take some satisfaction in that. 4 years of being treated like disposable labor, and now I was helping their competition eat their lunch. Month 10, things got interesting. I was on site at Precision Metalworks when my phone started blowing up. Dad, Tyler, even Mom, who'd barely spoken to me since I left, all calling and texting urgently. I ignored them. Whatever crisis they had wasn't my problem anymore. The voicemail started rolling in. Dad, we need to talk. It's about the company. Call me as soon as possible. Tyler. Dude, seriously, we're in trouble here. You need to come back. Mom, please call your father. He's very stressed. I finally listened to one of Dad's messages. His voice was strained, almost panicked. Son, we've got serious problems. Lost 3 major clients this quarter. We're hemorrhaging money. Tyler's trying, but he needs help. Your help. We can work something out. Please call me. I deleted it and went back to work. The calls kept coming. I blocked Dad and Tyler's numbers. Changed my LinkedIn settings so they couldn't see my activity. Made it clear I had zero interest in anything involving their company. But the messages found other routes. Dad started emailing me at my work address. Not sure how he got it. Long emails about legacy and family. And needing me. I set up a filter to send them straight to trash. Tyler apparently tried contacting me through Facebook, Instagram, even tried to DM me on Reddit somehow. All blocked. Mom tried the emotional manipulation route. Called me crying about how Dad was having chest pains from stress, and this was killing him. Said Tyler was working 18-hour days trying to keep things together. Begged me to at least talk to them. I texted back once. Dad chose Tyler. He chose to underpay me for 4 years while grooming Tyler to take over. This is the consequence of that choice. I'm not fixing their mistakes. Month 11, Janet messaged me again. Said the company was in real trouble. They'd burned through most of their cash reserves. Bank was getting nervous about their line of credit. They'd laid off 6 people. Rumors of bankruptcy were circulating. Tyler had apparently tried to implement some efficiency improvements that backfired spectacularly. Cut corners on quality control to save money, resulted in a massive recall, and destroyed their reputation with 2 major clients. He'd also pissed off their best suppliers by demanding payment terms they couldn't support, so now they were paying premium prices for materials. Everything I'd built, Tyler had systematically dismantled in less than a year. Part of me felt vindicated. They'd treated me like shit, assumed Tyler could just step into my role without any of my skills or knowledge, and now they were learning exactly how much I'd been holding that company together. But I also felt sad for the good people still there. The machinists who'd trained me when I first started, the shop foreman who'd always treated me with respect. They didn't deserve to lose their jobs because Dad and Tyler were incompetent. Still, not my circus anymore. Not my monkeys. Month 12, 1 year after I'd left, Bill at Precision Metalworks took me to lunch. Said he'd heard through the grapevine that my dad's company was struggling bad. Asked if I knew anything about a potential acquisition opportunity. I told him what I knew. Bill got this thoughtful look and said, "You know, if we acquired them, we'd need someone who knows that operation inside and out to integrate it properly. Someone who could salvage what's valuable and fix what's broken. Might be a VP level position. Probably $250,000 plus equity." The irony wasn't lost on me. I could potentially end up as VP of operations for the company that acquired Dad's business. Would essentially be Dad's boss. And Tyler's, if he even kept his job after an acquisition. I told Bill I'd think about it. That night, Dad called from a number I hadn't blocked. I answered without thinking. "Please don't hang up," he said immediately. His voice sounded broken. "I know you don't want to hear from me. I know I fucked up. But I'm begging you to hear me out." I stayed silent. The company's in trouble. Real trouble. We're probably going under in the next 6 months if things don't change. The bank is threatening to pull our line of credit. We've lost most of our major clients. Tyler tried his best, but he's not ready. He's not you. "No shit," I said. "I was wrong," Dad continued. "About everything. About Tyler. About you. About how I treated you all these years. You were the one who made this company successful, and I was too proud and stupid to see it. I'm sorry. 4 years too late." But I let him keep talking. "Come back," he said. "Please. Name your price. CEO position. Whatever you want. We need you." "What about Tyler?" I asked. Long pause. "He'd step aside. Or work under you. Whatever needs to happen. And my salary? Whatever you want. Seriously. I'll put it in writing. You'd be running everything." I thought about it for approximately 3 seconds. "No. Please. You had 4 years to pay me fairly. 4 years to treat me like a valued employee instead of cheap labor. You chose Tyler over me at every opportunity. You chose him when you bought him cars while I drove a beater. You chose him when you paid his way through a 6-year degree while I worked through school. You chose him when you made him CEO after 2 months while denying me raises for 4 years. This is the consequence of those choices. I'm sorry. You're not sorry you treated me badly. You're sorry it didn't work out the way you planned. You're sorry Tyler couldn't magically do the job you assumed he could do, because he's your favorite. You're sorry you're losing your company. But you're not actually sorry for how you treated me. That's not... I'm making $220,000 a year now. I love my job. I work with competent people who respect me. I have real opportunities for growth. Why the fuck would I give that up to come back and save your company? Because it's family. Family is what you chose with Tyler. I'm just the guy who worked there for 4 years. Good luck with your succession plan." I hung up. He called back immediately. I blocked the number. The next day, Tyler showed up at Precision Metalworks. Security called me because he was in the lobby demanding to see me. I went down. Tyler looked like shit. Lost weight, dark circles under his eyes, wearing a wrinkled suit that looked like he'd slept in it. "You have to come back," he said. No greeting, no small talk, just desperate pleading. "I don't have to do anything," I replied. "We're going bankrupt. Dad's having chest pains. Mom's on anxiety meds. The company's falling apart. I can't..." His voice cracked. "I can't do this. I don't know what I'm doing. Should have thought about that before you took a CEO job you weren't qualified for." "I didn't ask for this." "Dad just handed it to me. I thought you'd still be there to help me figure it out. That was the plan, wasn't it? You get the title and the money. I do the actual work. Everyone pretends you're competent. Except I left. And now you're discovering that running a company requires actual skills and knowledge." "Please," Tyler said. His eyes were wet. "I know we treated you badly. I know Dad fucked up. I fucked up. But you can't just let the company die. Think about the employees. All those people who'll lose their jobs." "I think about them constantly," I said. "That's why I connected Bill Stevens with a few of them. Precision Metalworks is hiring. The good people from Dad's shop will have jobs. They'll have better jobs, actually, at a company that isn't run by incompetent nepotism." Tyler's face went white. "You're helping them poach our employees?" "I'm helping good people find good jobs before your company implodes and leaves them with nothing. You should thank me. You're destroying Dad's legacy. Everything he built..." "I built it," I interrupted. "Dad started a company. I turned it into something successful. Then Dad handed it to you, and you destroyed it in less than a year. This isn't on me." "What do you want?" Tyler asked. "Money? Equity? Name it. Just come back and fix this." I looked at my brother. The golden child who'd been handed everything our entire lives and squandered it all through sheer incompetence and entitlement. I want you to fail, I said. I want you to experience what it's like when hard work and talent don't matter because someone else gets opportunities you deserve. I want you to understand what I felt like every single day working for Dad while he treated you like royalty. I want you to fail, so maybe, you'll learn that being someone's favorite doesn't make you competent. Tyler stood there, stunned. Get out, I said, and don't come back. Security escorted him out. I went back to work. Update 1. It's been 6 months since Tyler showed up at my office. Figured I'd update this because shit has gotten even more interesting. Dad's company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy 3 months ago. Tried reorganizing, but couldn't make it work. They're in Chapter 7 liquidation now. Company assets are being sold off to pay creditors. Bill Stevens at Precision Metalworks ended up acquiring their client contracts and some of their equipment for pennies on the dollar. He offered positions to 8 of Dad's former employees, all the good ones I'd worked with. 7 accepted. The 8th retired. Tyler's unemployment didn't last long. Dad got him a job at a buddy's distribution company, entry-level logistics coordinator, $38,000 a year. Tyler's posting vague LinkedIn updates about learning the fundamentals and paying his dues like he's fucking Rocky Balboa instead of a failed CEO getting charity employment. Dad and Mom had to sell their house, moved into a condo. Dad's officially retired now, not by choice. His reputation in the industry is trashed. Word got around about how badly Tyler fucked up the company, and Dad's name is attached to that failure. The real kicker? Dad tried to blame me publicly. Started telling people I'd sabotaged the company by leaving at a critical time and feeding information to competitors. Couple of people reached out to ask about it. I responded once, publicly, on LinkedIn. Posted a straightforward timeline. 4 years of below-market salary. Tyler's promotion to CEO after 2 months. My resignation. Tyler's disasters. Company bankruptcy. Let the facts speak for themselves. Dad's post got ratioed hard. Multiple people who'd worked with me commented about my contributions. A few clients even chimed in about how quality went downhill after I left. Dad deleted his post and hasn't said anything public since. Tyler tried to reach out again last month. Email this time since I'd blocked him everywhere else. Long sob story about how he never wanted the CEO job. Dad pushed it on him. He was set up to fail, blah, blah, blah. Ended with, I'm sorry for everything. You were right about all of it. I'm trying to be better. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I didn't respond. Not because I'm being petty. Okay, maybe a little because I'm being petty, but mainly because there's nothing to say. Tyler's apology means nothing. It doesn't undo 4 years of watching him coast through life on Dad's favoritism. It doesn't undo the year he spent destroying everything I built. It doesn't undo a lifetime of being treated like I was less important than him. Some bridges you burn. Others you just watch collapse on their own. As for me, Apex promoted me to senior principal consultant, making $285,000 total comp now, managing a team of 5 consultants, working on projects with some of the biggest manufacturers in the country, bought a house last month, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, 2-car garage, paid 20% down, and my mortgage is less than what Tyler's making annually at his new career. Life's pretty good when you stop waiting for other people to appreciate you and just appreciate yourself. Final update, 2 years after I left Dad's company. Time for a final update because this story has officially run its course. Dad had a heart attack 8 months ago. Not related to stress, apparently. Just shitty genetics and a lifetime of burgers. He survived, but it was a wake-up call. Mom called me from the hospital. First time we'd spoken in over a year. Your father wants to see you, she said. Please, he's asking for you. I went. Not because I'd forgiven anything, but because the man almost died and I'm not a complete monster. Found him in a hospital bed looking 20 years older than when I'd last seen him. Mom and Tyler were there. Tyler looked uncomfortable. Mom looked relieved I'd shown up. Dad tried the deathbed reconciliation speech. Apologized for everything. Said he'd been a terrible father to me. Said he'd let his favoritism blind him. Said he was proud of what I'd accomplished despite, not because of him. Cried a bit. I sat there and took it in. Thought about all the years of bullshit. All the times he'd chosen Tyler over me. All the opportunities he'd denied me while handing Tyler everything. I appreciate you saying that, I finally said. I do. But it doesn't change anything. You made your choices. I made mine. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. I know, Dad said. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. And I'm proud of you. Should have said it years ago. Yeah, I said. You should have. That was pretty much it. Dad recovered. He and Mom are doing the retirement thing in their condo. Dad tried reaching out a few more times, but eventually stopped when I made it clear I wasn't interested in rebuilding a relationship. Tyler and I ran into each other at an industry conference 6 months ago. He's still working that logistics job, apparently doing okay at it. He walked up, awkward as hell, and said, Hey, I said back. Long pause. I really am sorry, he said. For everything. The way we treated you. The company. All of it. I know, I said. Is there any chance? No, he nodded. Yeah, I figured. For what it's worth, I tell people the truth now. About how I fucked up the company. About how you were the one who built it. I don't make excuses anymore. Good for you, I said. And I meant it, kind of. Not in a warm, fuzzy way, but in a basic human decency should be the minimum way. We didn't exchange numbers. Didn't make plans to grab coffee or catch up. Just nodded at each other and went our separate ways. I'm 33 now. Senior principal consultant at Apex. Making $340,000. Engaged to Emma, a structural engineer I met through work. She's brilliant and driven and treats me like an equal partner. We're planning a wedding for next spring. Mom asked if Dad and Tyler were invited. I said Mom was welcome. Dad and Tyler weren't. She tried the family obligation argument. I shut it down. They had a million chances to treat me like family. They chose not to. This is my wedding. Emma's family. My actual family. The people who've supported me and believed in me. Dad and Tyler don't make that list. Mom didn't push it. I think she knew better. That's where things stand. Dad's company is fully liquidated. Tyler's figuring out how to be a functional adult for the first time in his life. Dad's living with his regrets. Mom's caught in the middle but respecting my boundaries. And me? I'm building a life with someone who values me. Doing work I'm passionate about. Making money that reflects my actual worth. Living in a house I bought with money I earned. Surrounded by people who respect me. No golden child favoritism. No toxic family dynamics. No more waiting for approval that'll never come. Just peace. Finally. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. This story is titled, I Bought a House for Myself. Not for my sister who sided with my cheating ex. Now my parents are furious. But I got my ultimate revenge. Hey everyone. Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey guys, I'm 34, male, and I never thought I'd be posting on Reddit about this crap. But here we are. I used to have what I thought was a pretty decent life. Decent job as a mechanic at a local garage, a rented house in an okay neighborhood, and a wife, I'll call her Jessica, that I'd been with since college. Nothing fancy, but it was stable, you know? I worked hard, paid the bills on time, and thought I was building something that would last. Jessica and I weren't perfect, but whose relationship is? We had our routines, our inside jokes, our plans for the future. Or at least I thought we did. 2 years ago, my life basically exploded when I walked in on my wife Jessica screwing our neighbor in our bed. Not even making this up. I came home early from work because I wanted to surprise her for our anniversary. Guess the surprise was on me. I still remember the look on her face when she saw me standing in the doorway. Not even embarrassment, just annoyance that I'd interrupted. That's when I knew our 6-year marriage was actually dead long before I opened that bedroom door. The next few weeks were a blur of arguments, fake apologies, and me sleeping on my buddy Mike's couch while trying not to completely lose my mind. Jessica kept saying it was just a mistake and how we could work through this, but then I found texts going back months. This wasn't a one-time thing. She'd been cheating pretty much our entire marriage. The divorce was nasty as hell. She tried to take everything, including the car I'd bought before we even met. Her lawyer was this shark in a suit who kept looking at me like I was dirt. Meanwhile, I could barely afford my lawyer, who honestly seemed more interested in his lunch break than my case. But the worst betrayal wasn't even from Jessica. It was from my sister Amber, 29 female. We'd always been close, or so I thought. Single mom, 2 kids. I'd always helped her out when times were tough. Bought school supplies for my niece and nephew, fixed her car countless times, even paid her rent twice when she was between jobs. And how did she repay me? By completely siding with Jessica. Not because she thought I deserved to be cheated on, but because Jessica was buying her stuff. New clothes, taking her out to fancy restaurants, even babysitting so Amber could go on dates. And the cherry on top? Jessica promised to hook her up with this supposed rich friend of the guy she was cheating with. Amber was literally trading her loyalty for the chance at a sugar daddy. You probably drove her to cheat anyway, Amber told me over the phone when I called her, hurt that she was still hanging out with Jessica. Men never understand what women need. That was the moment I realized I was truly on my own. I hung up, blocked her number, and made a decision right then. I was going to rebuild my life if it killed me. So I packed up the few things Jessica's lawyer let me keep and found the cheapest apartment I could. It was basically a shoebox with a bathroom attached. The kind of place where you can cook dinner, watch TV, and use the toilet without getting up from your bed. Yeah, that's small. I remember sitting on that lumpy mattress the first night, wondering how the hell my life had collapsed so fast. Like 6 months before, I was married, had a decent place to live, thought my sister had my back, and was actually pretty happy. Now, I was in a crappy apartment that smelled like the previous tenant's cats. My wife was screwing half the neighborhood, and my sister was Team Jessica all the way. The worst part was seeing their Instagram posts. Jessica and Amber were suddenly BFFs, posting selfies at restaurants I could never afford to take Jessica to, with these long captions about living your best life and toxic people, meaning me, obviously. One time they even posted from a weekend trip to the beach that Jessica and I had always talked about taking, but never had the money for. Guess she found the money once I wasn't in the picture. My parents weren't much help either. They kept telling me to try to work things out with Jessica because marriage is about compromise. When I told them about catching her literally in bed with another dude, my mom said, "Well, relationships are complicated, honey." Yeah, no kidding, Mom. I think that's what hurt the most. Everyone acting like I was overreacting by being upset that my wife was cheating. Like I was the unreasonable one for not wanting to stay with someone who had been lying to my face for years. The breaking point came when I ran into Amber at the grocery store, about a month after moving into my shoebox apartment. I was buying ramen and cheap coffee, basically my entire diet at that point, and she was loading up on expensive snacks, the kind of stuff she could never afford before. I tried to avoid her, but she spotted me and came over with this fake concerned look. "Oh my God, you look terrible," she said, eyeing my cart. "Are you eating enough?" Before I could answer, she launched into this story about how Jessica was doing so much better now, and how her new boyfriend, the neighbor she'd been cheating with, was so generous and took them all out to this fancy restaurant last weekend. "You know," she said, leaning in like she was sharing some big secret, "Jessica told me everything about why your marriage failed. You really should have paid more attention to her needs." I just stared at her, not even knowing how to respond to that. My sister, who I'd helped raise after our dad left when she was 12, was standing in front of me basically saying I deserved to be cheated on. "Jessica's new boyfriend might have a friend you'd like," she added with a smirk. "Someone who can afford better groceries than this." She gestured at my cart. I left my groceries right there in the aisle and walked out. Didn't say a word to her. Just turned around and left. That night, I made a plan. I was done feeling sorry for myself. Done letting Jessica and Amber make me feel like I was the problem. I was going to rebuild my life from scratch, and I was going to do it so well that they'd choke on their words. My goal was to work my ass off until I could afford a place of my own. A real place, not a depressing shoebox. Something that was mine that no one could take away from me revenge would taste in the end. So my routine went insane and probably not healthy, but I didn't care. I'd wake up at 5 a.m., hit the crappy gym in my apartment building, basically just a treadmill and some dumbbells in a closet, then get to the garage by 6:30. I'd work until 6 or 7 p.m., sometimes later if we had emergency repairs. Then I'd grab some cheap takeout, go home, and study until my eyes couldn't stay open anymore. Weekends weren't any better. I picked up side jobs fixing cars for cash, changed oil, replaced brake pads, swapped out alternators, basic stuff I could do in parking lots with minimal tools. It wasn't exactly legal, but it paid, and I needed every dollar. The manager, I'll call him Rick, started giving me more responsibilities at the shop. First, it was just ordering parts and talking to customers. Then he let me handle the scheduling and some of the hiring. By month 6, I was basically running the place while he supervised, aka played solitaire in the back office. "You know," he told me one day while we were locking up, "I've owned this place for almost 30 years. Never had someone work as hard as you do. What's driving you, kid?" I thought about telling him the whole sad story. The cheating wife, the backstabbing sister, the whole mess. But instead I just said, "Trying to buy a house." He nodded like that made perfect sense. "Good goal. Nothing better than having your own place. No landlord to answer to. No worrying about rent going up. Smart move." That simple validation meant more to me than he probably realized. In a world where everyone seemed to think I was the bad guy for being upset about being cheated on, having someone just say good job was huge. The funny thing is, even though I was working nonstop, I started feeling better. Like the constant activity kept me from sitting around feeling sorry for myself. And seeing actual progress in my bank account every month gave me something to focus on, besides how much my life sucked. Don't get me wrong, I still had plenty of bad days. Days when I'd see a post from Jessica or Amber and have to resist the urge to throw my phone against the wall. Days when a customer would come in who reminded me of Jessica, and I get flashbacks of her cheating. But those days got fewer and farther between as time passed. The online classes were kicking my ass, though. I hadn't been a great student in high school, and trying to learn accounting principles after a 12-hour shift fixing cars was brutal. I failed the first practice exam so bad that my online tutor actually called me to ask if I was okay. But I kept at it, studying during lunch breaks, watching tutorial videos while waiting for parts deliveries, drilling myself with flashcards before bed. Slowly, painfully, I started to get it. And the more I understood, the more I could see how Rick's business could be improved. He was still doing everything old school, paper invoices, no real inventory system, pricing based on gut feeling rather than actual costs. One night, after closing, I showed him a spreadsheet I'd made analyzing the last 6 months of jobs. I'd broken down which services made the most profit, which customers were repeat business, which suppliers gave us the best deals. It was basic stuff I'd learned in my classes, but Rick looked at me like I'd just performed magic. "Where did you learn to do all this?" he asked, scrolling through my analysis. "Online classes," I said. "Been taking them at night." He gave me this long look, then said something that changed everything. "You know, I've been thinking about selling this place when I retire. Always figured I'd just close up shop, but you interested in buying me out someday?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Own the garage? Actually be my own boss? It seemed impossible. "I don't have that kind of money, Rick." He waved his hand dismissively. "We could work something out. Payment plan, you taking over more and more while I phase out. I'd rather sell to someone who gives a damn than some corporation that'll fire everyone and jack up prices." It was the first time in ages that I felt like maybe things might work out. Not just getting by, but actually building something, having a future that I controlled. That night, I went home and added another goal to my list. Not just buy a house, but buy the garage too. It would take longer, require even more work, but the thought of owning my own business, being completely independent, was too good to pass up. About a year into my non-stop grind, things at the shop were going great. Rick had basically made me the manager, and our business was up 30% since I'd started running things. I was saving every penny that didn't go to rent or food. My social life was non-existent, but I didn't care. I had a plan. Then I started hearing whispers that things weren't so perfect in Jessica and Amberland. The guy Jessica had been cheating with? Yeah, he'd moved on to someone else barely 2 months after our divorce was final. Apparently, he wasn't interested in anything serious. And that rich sugar daddy Jessica had promised to introduce Amber to? Turned out he was just some broke dude pretending to be rich to get into clubs. When Amber finally met him, he tried to get her to pay for dinner. The shopping trips slowed down. The fancy vacations stopped. Jessica had blown through most of her divorce money, trying to impress her new boyfriend, who'd now ditched her. And Amber, who'd quit her steady job at the insurance office thinking she was about to land a rich guy, was struggling to find work again. I heard all this through Mike, who was still friends with Jessica's cousin. I didn't say anything when he told me. Didn't laugh or say, "I told you so." Just nodded and kept working on the transmission I was fixing. But inside, I'm not gonna lie, it felt good to know karma was finally showing up. Rick noticed how much effort I was putting in and offered me a deal I never expected. He wanted to start the process of me buying him out of the business. "You're running it anyway," he said. "Might as well own it." We worked out a payment plan that would take years, but it was doable. Between that and my savings, I finally had enough for a down payment on a modest house in a decent neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it would be mine. The day I signed the papers for the house, I immediately got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was Amber. Somehow she'd gotten a new phone and wanted to reconnect. Said she missed her brother and how family should stick together. I didn't respond. I was too busy planning my move. Then one Saturday, I was at the shop late finishing up a complicated engine rebuild when Rick came in. He usually didn't work weekends, so I was surprised to see him. "Don't you ever take a day off?" he asked, shaking his head. I shrugged. Got nowhere else to be. He sat down on the stool next to my workbench. "Look, I've been meaning to talk to you about something. My wife and I are thinking about moving to Arizona. Her arthritis is getting worse, and the cold winters here aren't helping. Doctor says a warmer climate would be good for her. My heart sank. Was he selling the garage to someone else? After all my hard work? So, what happens to the shop? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. He looked at me like I was an idiot. That's what I want to talk about. I'm ready to accelerate our plan. Instead of the 5-year buyout we discussed, I want to do it in 2. You take over as owner at the end of the year, we work out a payment schedule you can handle, and I head west for some sunshine. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was happening way faster than I'd expected. I don't know if I have enough saved for that kind of down payment yet, I admitted. I just put most of my savings toward the house. Rick waved his hand. We'll figure it out. You've already increased business by 30%. The place is worth more with you running it anyway. Maybe we adjust the percentages a bit. You get a bigger cut of the profits now, but more of that goes toward your ownership stake. We spent the next hour working out the details. By the time he left, we had the outline of a deal that would make me the owner of Rick's Auto Repair by Christmas. It wasn't perfect. I'd be stretching myself financially for a couple of years. But it was doable. And the thought of owning my own business before I turned 35? That was worth the risk. As I was locking up the shop, my phone buzzed with another text from Amber. This one was less friendly than the first. Seriously? You're just going to ignore me? After everything I've done for you? Real mature, bro. I snorted. Everything she'd done for me? Like trash-talking me to my ex-wife? Like mocking my pain while I was at my lowest point? Like choosing Jessica's empty promises over her own brother? I typed out about 5 different angry responses, deleted them all, and finally settled on, busy with work. Talk later. It was non-committal enough that she couldn't accuse me of ignoring her, but vague enough that later could mean basically never. I had no interest in letting Amber back into my life just because her meal ticket had disappeared. When I got home to my crappy apartment that night, I looked around at the packed boxes and cheap furniture and felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Pride. In just a few days, I'd be moving into my own house. In a few months, I'd own my own business, and I'd done it all by myself, while the people who were supposed to love me had been betting on my failure. And because nothing in this life is perfect, the next morning, I got a call from the real estate agent. The seller was trying to back out, claiming they got a better offer. My stomach dropped, but the agent reassured me the contract was airtight. It'd just delay closing by a couple of weeks while their lawyer set them straight. Annoying, but after the year I'd had, one more obstacle wasn't going to stop me. 3 days before I was set to move into my new place, there was a knock at my apartment door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and the few friends I had left knew I was busy packing. I opened the door to find Amber standing there, looking nothing like the confident woman who'd mocked me at the garage a year ago. Her hair was a mess, her clothes were wrinkled, and she had this desperate look on her face that I recognized. It was the same look she used to have before asking me for money. "Hey, stranger," she said, trying to sound casual. "Can I come in?" I didn't move from the doorway. "What do you want, Amber?" She forced a laugh. "Can't a sister just visit her brother? It's been forever." "Yeah, about a year. Since you came to the shop to brag about Jessica's diamond bracelet," I said, crossing my arms. Her fake smile dropped. "Look, I made some mistakes, okay? I was stupid. Jessica fed me all these lies about you, and I believed her. I'm sorry." I laughed. "Where is Jessica now? Still buying you stuff?" Amber's eyes dropped to the floor. "We're not really hanging out anymore. She's going through some stuff. That means Jessica wasn't useful to her anymore." I sighed. Again. "What do you want, Amber?" That's when she noticed the boxes behind me. "Are you moving?" "Yep. Bought a house. Closing was last week." Her eyes lit up like I just offered her a winning lottery ticket. "A house? That's amazing. How many bedrooms?" And there it was. I could see the wheels turning in her head. 3, I said, knowing exactly where this was going. "That's perfect," she exclaimed, way too enthusiastically. "Because, well, I'm kind of in a situation. My landlord's selling the building, and we have to be out by the end of the month. The kids and I have been looking, but you know how crazy rent is these days." I just stared at her, waiting for her to get to the point. "So I was thinking," she continued, "maybe we could help each other out. The kids and I could move in with you. We wouldn't be any trouble. I could help with bills once I find a new job, and the kids would love having their uncle around." The audacity was actually impressive. After everything, the betrayal, the mockery, the complete dismissal of my pain, she really thought she could just show up and get a free place to live. "No," I said simply. Her smile faltered. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, no, you can't live with me. Not now, not ever." She switched tactics immediately, her eyes welling up with tears. "But the kids, they have nowhere to go. We might end up in a shelter. Is that what you want? Your own niece and nephew homeless because you're too selfish to help? That's when I lost it. Not by yelling or slamming the door, but by laughing. I couldn't help it. The sheer manipulation was so transparent. Where were you when Jessica was screwing around behind my back? I asked. Where were you when I was sleeping on Mike's couch? When I lost my house, my savings, my marriage? Oh, right. You were shopping with the woman who destroyed my life, laughing about what a loser I was. Her face went pale. That's not... I didn't mean... I started to close the door, but she stuck her foot in the way. Please, she begged, real desperation in her voice now. I have nowhere else to go. Mom and Dad won't help. Jessica's ghosting me and my friends. They can't take us in. That sounds like a you problem, I said, echoing the exact words she'd said to me when I told her Jessica had taken most of our joint account before I could freeze it. I moved her foot and closed the door. For about 5 minutes, she stood out there knocking and calling my name. I ignored her completely, going back to packing boxes like she wasn't even there. Eventually, she gave up and left. I thought that would be the end of it. I should have known better. The next day, my phone started blowing up with texts and calls, not just from Amber, but from my parents too. Apparently, Amber had gone straight to them with some sob story about how I was refusing to help her and the kids in their time of need. My mom's voicemail was classic guilt trip material. I raised you better than this. Family helps family. I can't believe you would let your sister and those poor children suffer when you have a whole house to yourself. Never mind that my parents had barely reached out during my divorce. Never mind that they'd suggested I try to work things out with Jessica, even after I told them about the cheating. Never mind that they'd done absolutely nothing to help me when I was the one in crisis. My dad's message was worse. Son, I'm disappointed in you. A man takes care of his family. Your sister needs help, and you're in a position to provide it. That's your responsibility as her brother. I hadn't heard from my dad in months, and this was what finally got him to call? Telling me I wasn't being man enough because I wouldn't let my backstabbing sister move into the house I'd worked my ass off to buy? I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I focused on finishing my packing and coordinating with the moving company. I had taken the day off from the garage specifically to get everything ready for the move, and I wasn't going to waste it dealing with family drama. Then came the text that really set me off. It was from Jessica. Yeah, my ex-wife, the woman who'd cheated on me for most of our marriage, thought she had the right to weigh in. I know we're not on the best terms, but I'm really worried about Amber and the kids. She says you bought a house with plenty of room but won't help them. That doesn't sound like the man I married. Please reconsider. The hypocrisy was so stunning I had to read it twice. I finally broke my silence with a single reply. The man you married no longer exists. You killed him. Do not contact me again. Then I blocked her number. By that evening, the messages from my family had taken on a more threatening tone. My mom was now saying she was going to have to get involved if I didn't do the right thing. My dad mentioned something about coming over to talk some sense into me. Amber had switched from begging to angry accusations about how I was showing my true colors and always was the selfish one. I didn't care anymore. Let them come. Let them threaten. I was done being the family doormat. The next morning, I woke up to a new voice message from an unknown number. It was Jessica's mother, my former mother-in-law, telling me she was very disappointed in how I was treating Amber and that she had raised Jessica to believe family comes first. I nearly choked on my coffee. Yeah, Jessica really put family first when she was screwing the neighbor. I realized they were pulling out all the stops, contacting anyone they thought might have influence over me. It was pathetic and desperate, but also a little scary. How far were they willing to go? I decided to take some precautions. I called the real estate agent and asked if we could move up the closing date. Explained that I had some family issues and needed to get into the house as soon as possible. She said she'd try, but no promises. Then I called Rick and explained the situation. He was surprisingly understanding, even offering to let me crash at his place if things got too intense with my family. I also called Mike, who had been my rock through the divorce. He immediately offered to come over and help me finish packing, and to be there when I moved in case my family tried to show up and cause trouble. Dude, he said, they're only coming around now because you're doing well. Where were they when you were sleeping on my couch? Screw 'em. It felt good to have people in my corner, even if they weren't blood relatives. That afternoon, the real estate agent called with good news. We could close the next day. The seller had finally accepted that they couldn't back out, and all the paperwork was ready. I'd be able to move into my new house 48 hours earlier than planned. I didn't tell anyone in my family about the change in plans. Let them show up at my empty apartment. By then, I'd be safely in my new home, with a security system installed and no forwarding address left behind. Moving day came, and I left my crappy apartment behind for good. My new house wasn't anything special by most people's standards, but to me, it was everything. I spent that first night sitting on my back porch with a cold soda, looking up at the stars, feeling like I could finally breathe again. And I did something I probably shouldn't have. I posted a few photos of my new place on Facebook. Nothing flashy, just a simple new chapter, new home post. I knew Amber would see it. I knew my parents would see it. Part of me wanted them to. The reactions were immediate. Friends I hadn't talked to in ages congratulated me. Guys from the shop liked the post. A few people from high school commented about how well I was doing. And then the private messages started. My dad telling me how disappointed he was that I would flaunt my success while your sister struggles. My mom saying I was being needlessly cruel. And Amber? She went nuclear. She posted this long, dramatic rant on her page about how money changes people. She didn't tag me, but everyone knew who she was talking about. I didn't engage with their drama. I focused on the garage. Business was booming. And Rick was talking about retiring earlier than planned. We were working out the details of me taking over completely within the next year. For the first time since finding Jessica with that guy, I was actually happy. Not just surviving, but thriving. And I'd done it all on my own. But of course, they couldn't just let me be. 3 days after I moved in, my mom called from a new number I hadn't blocked yet. I picked up without checking caller ID, thinking it might be a client from the garage. Hello? Finally, you answer. My mom's voice was that special mix of relief and accusation. We've been trying to reach you for days. I sighed. What do you want, Mom? What do I want? I want you to act like the son I raised. Your sister and those children are about to be homeless, and you're ignoring their calls while living in a big empty house all by yourself. I had to laugh at that. Big empty house? Mom, it's a modest 3-bedroom in a middle-class neighborhood, and it's not empty. I live here. You know what I mean, she snapped. You have room, they need room. It's that simple. Nothing's ever that simple, I said. Where was all this family concern when Jessica was cheating on me? When I was the one who lost everything? There was a pause on the line. Then, in a softer voice, she said, that was different. How? How was it different? I demanded. You're a man, she said. Like that explained everything. Men can take care of themselves. Amber has children. And there it was. The double standard that had defined my entire relationship with my family. I was expected to handle everything on my own, to sacrifice, to be the strong one. But Amber, she got endless excuses. Mom, I said, keeping my voice calm, I worked 80-hour weeks for 2 years to afford this house. I took online classes after 12-hour shifts at the garage. I lived in an apartment where the bathroom ceiling leaked when the upstairs neighbor took a shower. I did all that by myself, without help from anyone, especially not my family. So no, Amber can't live with me. She made her choice when she sided with Jessica, and now she can deal with the consequences. She made a mistake, my mom insisted. People make mistakes. Yeah, they do, I agreed. And sometimes those mistakes have consequences that can't be fixed with a simple sorry. This is one of those times. So you'll punish the children too? They didn't do anything wrong. It was a low blow, using my niece and nephew against me. I loved those kids, even though I hadn't seen them much since the divorce. But I knew what would happen if I let Amber move in. She'd never leave. And eventually, I'd end up supporting all 3 of them, while she went back to her old ways. The kids have grandparents with a 4-bedroom house, I pointed out. Why aren't they moving in with you and Dad? Another telling pause. Your father and I are too old to have children running around. We need our peace and quiet. They wanted to use my house as a dumping ground for Amber's problems, so they wouldn't have to deal with them. Well, I need my peace and quiet too, I said. After the past 2 years, I've earned it. This isn't over, my mom warned before hanging up. She was right about that, at least. It wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The next day, I came home from work to find Amber's car parked in my driveway. She was sitting on my front porch with her kids, surrounded by suitcases and garbage bags full of clothes. What the hell is this? I asked as I got out of my truck. We got evicted, she said, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. We have nowhere else to go. The kids looked confused and tired. I felt bad for them, but this level of manipulation made my blood boil. She said defiantly. So you thought you'd just show up at my house with all your stuff? But I know you didn't really without even asking if it was okay? You wouldn't let your own niece and nephew be homeless. She was trying to back me into a corner, using the kids as shields. It was a dirty move, but exactly what I'd expect from her. Get in your car and leave, I said firmly. Now. Or what? She challenged. You'll call the cops on your own sister? With her kids right here? I took a deep breath. Amber, this isn't going to work. I'm not letting you guilt me into this. Take the kids to Mom and Dad's. They won't take us, she admitted. They said they're too old for kids. Then call Jessica, I suggested. You two were best friends, remember? Shopping buddies. She can put you up. Amber's face darkened. Jessica is... We're not really talking anymore. Shocking, I muttered. Look, I feel for the kids, I really do. But you can't stay here. You're a real piece of work, Amber spat. Acting all high and mighty because you've got a house now. Newsflash, you're still the same loser Jessica cheated on. No wonder she couldn't stay faithful. Who would want to be with someone so selfish and cold? And just like that, any guilt I might have felt vanished. That was the real Amber. The one who had mocked my pain, who had chosen Jessica over her own brother, who was now trying to manipulate me using her children. Get off my property, I said coldly. Now, or I really will call the cops. She must have seen something in my face that told her I meant it, because she started gathering up her bags. Come on, kids, she said loudly. Your uncle doesn't want us. We'll figure something out on our own, like we always do. A week after Amber's little stunt on my porch, I thought things would finally settle down. I had my house, my business, my peace, but people like her and Jessica? They don't go down without one last desperate attempt. I knew better, so I took my caution. So, the morning after Amber's stunt on my porch, I went straight to the county clerk's office and filed for a no trespassing order against her. The process was easier than I expected. Turns out when someone shows up with bags and kids trying to force their way into your home, that's actual grounds for concern. The police officer I spoke to said I had enough evidence to enforce it immediately. She also suggested installing cameras in case Amber tried anything again. So that's exactly what I did. By noon, I had security cameras covering every inch of my property, with motion alerts sent straight to my phone. Let Amber try another sob story ambush. I'd have the cops at my doorstep before she could get comfortable. But then Jessica showed up out of nowhere. It was late, close to midnight, and I was just getting home from the garage. My porch light caught the figure sitting on my front steps, arms wrapped around herself. It took me a second, but when she looked up, I recognized her. Jessica. She looked terrible. Nothing like the put-together woman who used to flaunt new jewelry on Instagram while mocking me behind my back. Her hair was a mess. She had bags under her eyes, and she looked smaller somehow, like life had finally knocked her down a few pegs. Matt, she said, her voice weak. I didn't know where else to go. I laughed at the sheer audacity. Not my problem, I said, stepping around her to unlock my door. Please, she said, standing quickly. Just talk to me. I sighed. Talk about what, Jessica? How you cheated on me for years? How you ran through the divorce money and got dumped? Or maybe how you encouraged my sister to turn against me? Pick one. She flinched, but I didn't feel bad. Not even a little. I made mistakes, she whispered, swallowing hard. I was stupid. I thought... She stopped, rubbing her arms like she was trying to hold herself together. I thought I had everything figured out, but I didn't. He left me, Matt, just like that. One day I woke up and he was gone. Took everything. I lost my job, my apartment. I'm back at my mom's place, and she's threatening to kick me out. Sounds like karma, I said, stepping inside. She grabbed my arm before I could close the door. I loved you, she blurted, tears in her eyes. I know I messed up, but we had something real. Don't you ever miss it? I stared at her for a long moment, then smiled. No, I said, and shut the door in her face. I stood there listening as she cried outside for a minute before finally giving up and leaving. I didn't feel a damn thing. She was just another person from my past, desperate to claw her way back in. But that door was locked, and I was never opening it again. Amber must have found out about Jessica's failed attempt, because 2 days later, my parents showed up unannounced. I opened the door to see my mom with her arms crossed, my dad already looking pissed. We need to talk, my mom said, stepping past me into the house like she still had authority over me. I let them in, if only to get it over with. They didn't waste time. Your sister is in trouble, my dad started. She needs a place to stay. A good son would help her. A good son? I repeated, laughing. Funny. I don't remember hearing from you when I was the one who needed help. My mom's face hardened. That was different. You're a man. Amber has children. And I told her to take them to you, I shot back. But I guess your peace and quiet is more important, huh? You want me to be the responsible one, but only when it benefits you. My dad stood up, voice cold. You're selfish. You let money change you. You're not the son we raised. That hit, but not in the way they intended. I just nodded. You're right. I'm not the son you raised. That guy would have let himself be guilted into taking care of a woman who betrayed him. That guy would have kept giving to people who never gave back. That guy would have let his family walk all over him. I looked them both in the eye. But that guy's gone, and you should probably leave. My mom huffed, grabbing her purse. You'll regret this. Doubt it, I said, holding the door open. They left without another word. I closed the door behind them, locked it, and stood there for a second, taking it all in. I wasn't their son anymore. Good. I didn't need to be. I had a house, a business, a future. I built it all from scratch. And as I stood in my own home with nobody left to drag me down, I realized something. I'd never been freer in my entire life. My mom demanded I pay $15,000 for my sister's wedding. When I said no, she stole my credit card and drained my savings. But I couldn't stop laughing. The next day, my sister called me panicking. All right, Reddit, this one's savage. My mom drained my savings to fund my sister's wedding and thought she was being slick about it. Spoiler, she wasn't. It backfired in the most satisfying way possible. Grab your popcorn. Can't wait to tell you the whole thing. Look, I, 25 male, have always known my mom played favorites. It's one of those things you just accept growing up. Some kids get the spotlight, others get the bill. I was always the latter. My younger sister, Audrey? Golden child from day one. Private school paid for, car handed to her at 16. College tuition covered without her working a single shift. Meanwhile, I was grinding through community college and working nights at a warehouse to afford textbooks. You know, character building or whatever. But this was a whole new level of audacity. It was a Thursday evening, around 7. I'd just gotten home from my job at the engineering firm, still in my work clothes, about to grab a drink and decompress. That's when my mom walked into my apartment. Yeah, she still had a key. Another mistake I was about to regret. With that look on her face. She didn't even sit down. Just stood there in my living room, arms crossed, and dropped it like a bomb. Nick, Audrey's wedding is in 2 months. She needs $15,000. You're going to give it to her. Not, can you help? Not, would you consider? Just a straight-up demand. 15 grand. I set down my drink real slow, trying to process what I just heard. Mom, that's my entire savings account. I've been building that for 3 years. Her expression didn't change. That cold, calculated look she'd perfected over decades. You don't need it right now. Audrey's getting married. This is her special day. Family comes first, Nick. Or did I raise you to be selfish? There it was. The guilt and manipulation she'd been using since I was a kid. Paint me as the bad guy for wanting to keep my own money that I'd earned through 60-hour work weeks and skipping vacations. I took a breath, stayed calm. Mom, I worked my butt off for that money. Audrey's 24. Her fiancé Peter has a job. Between them, they're pulling in twice what I make. If they can't afford the wedding they want, they should scale it down or save up. Wrong answer. Her face hardened like concrete. So you're going to embarrass your sister? Let her walk down the aisle in some cheap venue because her brother's too greedy to help family? Everyone will know you refused. Your aunts, your cousins, everyone. The threat was clear. She'd make me the villain at every family gathering for the rest of my life. Paint me as the selfish son who let his sister's wedding fall apart. Never mind that I'd bailed them out before. Covered mom's car payment twice last year. Paid for Audrey's emergency dental work that somehow included cosmetic veneers. But sure, I'm the greedy one here. I'm not paying for Audrey's wedding, I said firmly, looking her dead in the eye. That's final. The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes going dark. You're making a mistake, Nick. A big one. Don't say I didn't warn you. She turned and walked out, slamming my apartment door hard enough to rattle the frame. I sat there in the silence that followed, that sinking feeling in my gut telling me this wasn't over. I should have changed my locks that night, should have frozen my credit, should have done a lot of things. But I figured even she wouldn't cross certain lines. Yeah, I was wrong about that. I woke up Friday morning to my phone buzzing like crazy. I had 3 missed calls from my bank's fraud department and 2 text alerts. My stomach dropped before I even opened them. Logged into my banking app and my worst fears were confirmed. My available credit cratered. Nearly $15,000 in pending charges posted overnight. My checking balance was untouched. This was all on my credit card. The transaction history made me want to put my fist through the wall. Wedding venue deposit, $5,000. Catering down payment, $4,500. Photography package, $2,800. Florist, $1,500. Dress alterations, $980. Reception decorations, $467. The charges kept going, all made within a 6-hour window. All on my credit card I kept locked in my desk drawer. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely dial the bank. Spent 20 minutes on the phone confirming what I already knew. Someone had used my card for a shopping spree, and that someone had my full card details including the CVV code. The fraud rep asked if anyone had access to my apartment. My mother has a key, I said, and she demanded this exact amount yesterday. The rep went quiet for a second. Sir, I'm very sorry, but you'll need to file a police report for fraud. We can start the dispute process, but with family involvement, this could get complicated. I hung up and just sat there on my couch, trying to wrap my head around it. My own mother had broken into my apartment, found my credit card, and ran up nearly $15,000 on my card to fund my sister's wedding. Not asked, not borrowed, stole. My buddy Kai, we'd worked together for 5 years, called right then for our usual Friday coffee run. Heard something in my voice when I answered. You sound like someone pissed in your cereal. What happened, dude? I told him everything. He was silent for a long moment, then said, Bro, you need to handle this now or they'll keep doing it forever. He was right. This wasn't just about the money anymore. This was about my mother thinking she could rob me and face zero consequences. I called my mom. She picked up on the third ring, sounding cheerful, like she hadn't just committed felony fraud 12 hours earlier. Morning, Nick. I hope you've had time to think about... You stole my credit card. I cut her off, voice cold. You stole $15,000. Silence. Then in that patronizing tone she'd perfected, Oh, don't be so dramatic. I didn't steal anything. I just handled things. Audrey needed help and you were being stubborn. You'll thank me later when you see how beautiful the wedding is. The nerve on this woman. She didn't even deny it. Didn't apologize. She acted like she's doing me a favor. I want my card back. Now. And you're going to cancel every single one of those charges. She laughed. Nick, honey, it's already done. The deposits are non-refundable. Just accept it and move on. Besides, what are you going to do? Call the police on your own mother? There it was. The real power play. She thought I wouldn't press charges because of family loyalty, because of how it would look, because she'd raised me to never cause a scene. Too bad, she'd miscalculated. I laughed too, but there was no humor in it. Well, about that. You've got 24 hours to return the money, all of it, or I'm filing a police report. You wouldn't dare. I hung up. Then I called the bank back and officially reported the card stolen and all charges as fraudulent. The rep walked me through the next steps, including filing a police report, which I scheduled for the next morning. Then I did something that would pay off later. I called my dad. See, my parents divorced when I was 19, about 6 years ago. Dad had moved 2 states over, remarried, built a new life. The divorce had been messy. Dad discovered Mom had been siphoning money from their joint accounts for years. It's why he left. He picked up on the second ring. Nick, is everything okay? Dad, I need to ask you something about the will you told me about before. The one Grandpa left. Saturday morning, I showed up at the police station with printed bank statements, transaction records, text message screenshots, and a timeline of events. The officer who took my report, Detective Bella, was professional, but skeptical at first. You're filing charges against your mother for credit card fraud? She asked, reviewing the documents. Yeah. She stole my card from my apartment and spent my entire savings without permission. I have evidence she was in my apartment. That got her attention. I pulled up the security footage on my phone, something I'd requested from my building manager that morning. Clear as day, there's my mom sneaking into my place in the middle of the night, leaving 40 minutes later with a small purse. Detective Bella's expression shifted from skeptical to seriously concerned. This is substantial evidence, Mr. Callahan. With this footage and the financial records, we can definitely move forward. Are you certain you want to press charges? I'm certain. She nodded and started the paperwork. Told me it would take a few days to process, that they'd need to interview my mother and Audrey, and that I should prepare for potential backlash. I was counting on the backlash. It was part of the plan. Meanwhile, Mom had apparently told Audrey what happened because my phone started blowing up with texts from my sister. Angry ones. How could you do this to me? My wedding is in 8 weeks. Everyone is going to know what a selfish jerk you are. I hope you're happy ruining my special day. Actually, I was. I didn't respond to any of them. Just screenshotted everything and added it to my evidence folder. Sunday evening, I got a call from my uncle, Mom's brother Paul. He'd always been more reasonable than her, though he usually stayed out of family drama. Emphasis on usually. Nick, your mother called me in hysterics. Says you're trying to have her arrested over a misunderstanding? Uncle Paul, she stole my credit card and spent $15,000 without permission. That's not a misunderstanding. He sighed. Look, I'm not saying what she did was right, But is this really worth tearing the family apart? Can't you just work it out? Yes, I'm pretty sure he meant, can't you just let her rob you in peace? She had a chance to make it right. She refused. This isn't about the money anymore. It's about them thinking they can do whatever they want without consequences. There was a long pause. Your mom mentioned something about fighting this. Said she has resources. That made my blood run cold. Resources meant lawyers, which is exactly why my conversation with Dad the other day was so important. After I hung up, I pulled out the folder Dad had overnighted to me. Inside was documentation about my grandfather's estate, specifically the trust fund he'd set up before he died 4 years ago. Grandpa had been a successful small business owner and sold his company for a decent chunk of change. Split the money between his kids and grandkids, but with very specific conditions outlined in the trust. The key clause, buried in legal language, any beneficiary convicted of fraud, theft, embezzlement, or financial crimes against another family member shall forfeit their entire share of the trust to be redistributed to the remaining beneficiaries. Mom's share? $180,000, currently sitting in a managed trust she couldn't access until she turned 62 next year. Audrey had a smaller share, $45,000, set to unlock when she turned 28. The best part? Grandpa had named me as the secondary trustee after Dad. If Mom got convicted of fraud, I'd have authority to enforce the forfeiture clause. Every penny would be redistributed to me and my cousins. Dad had warned me about this clause years ago when the will was read. Said Grandpa specifically included it because he'd seen Mom's manipulative tendencies and wanted to protect the family from them. At the time, I thought it was paranoid. Now, it was my nuclear option. Monday morning, I got a call from Detective Bella. Mr. Callahan, we've reviewed your case. Given the evidence, we're moving forward with charges. Your mother will be contacted this week for questioning. What about my sister? She knowingly benefited from the fraud. That's trickier. If she genuinely didn't know the money was stolen, we can't charge her. But we'll be asking questions. After we hung up, I texted Audrey. One simple message. Every charge made on my stolen card needs to be refunded immediately. You have 48 hours. Her response came within minutes. Are you insane? The deposits are non-refundable. The wedding is in 7 weeks. I'm not canceling anything. I sent back, then you'll be getting married while Mom's dealing with fraud charges. Your choice. You're bluffing. You won't actually do this. I didn't respond. Wednesday morning, the bomb dropped. Detective Bella and another officer showed up at Mom's house to question her about the fraud charges. My aunt, who lived nearby, texted me within an hour with a play-by-play. Said the cops were there for 90 minutes, that Mom came out looking pale and shaken, that Audrey screamed at them from the driveway. That afternoon, my phone rang. Mom's lawyer. Some guy named Richard Voss, who apparently specialized in family law and white-collar defense. Wonderful. Mr. Callahan, I represent Eleanor Callahan regarding the allegations you've made. I'm calling to discuss a resolution. My client admits there was a misunderstanding regarding the use of your credit card. She's prepared to set up a payment plan to return the $15,000 over the course of 12 months. In exchange, you drop the charges. I almost laughed. 12 months? A payment plan? For stolen money? Your client stole my card and committed fraud. There's video evidence. This isn't a misunderstanding, it's a crime. The answer is no. His tone hardened. Mr. Callahan, I'd advise you to reconsider. Pursuing criminal charges against your mother will be expensive, time-consuming, and will permanently damage your family relationships. Is that really worth $15,000? Yes, I said flatly. Very well, but I should warn you, we'll be mounting a vigorous defense. This will get ugly. Waiting for it. I hung up. After I hung up, my phone immediately started buzzing with texts from various family members. My Aunt Laura, Uncle Paul, even some cousins I barely talked to, all of them trying to convince me to drop the charges, to be the bigger person, to think about Audrey's wedding. Not one of them called what Mom did wrong. It was all about protecting her and making sure Audrey's big day wasn't ruined. Funny how family comes first only applies when they need something from me. Everyone knew Mom played favorites, knew she manipulated people, and knew Audrey was spoiled rotten. But they all went along with it because it was easier than confronting them. Well, I was done making things easy. That evening, Kai came over with pizza and drinks. He'd been checking in daily since the theft, making sure I was holding up. So they lawyered up, he said. Does that mean you're in trouble? Nah. I've got security footage, bank records, and her own admission on a recorded call. She's screwed and she knows it. The lawyer's just trying to minimize damage. What about the wedding? I pulled up Audrey's Instagram on my phone. She'd posted a long dramatic story about how her toxic brother was trying to ruin her special day, and how family should support each other. Comments were mostly supportive. Her friends didn't know the full story. She's playing the victim card hard, I said. Kai shook his head. Man, your family's something else. What's your endgame here? I told him about the trust fund, about Grandpa's forfeiture clause, about the $180,000 Mom would lose if convicted. He let out a low whistle. Dang, that's tactical. It's justice. She spent my whole life taking from me. Money, time, peace of mind. Now she's about to learn a lesson. And Audrey? She's collateral damage. She could have done the right thing and refunded the charges. Instead, she's playing the victim. Kai raised his drink. Gotta say, man, I respect the heck out of this. Most people would have folded by now. The next few days were a blur of legal preparation. Detective Bella called with updates. The investigation was moving forward. They'd seized Mom's financial records and found evidence of other questionable transactions. Apparently, this wasn't the first time Mom had borrowed family members' money without asking. Friday afternoon, exactly 1 week after the theft, I got a call from Peter, Audrey's fiancé. I barely knew the guy, but he sounded stressed. Nick, man, we need to talk. Can you meet me for coffee? Just us? Interesting. I agreed to meet him Saturday morning. Saturday morning, I showed up at the coffee shop early, got myself situated in a back corner booth where we could talk privately. Peter arrived 10 minutes later looking nervous, and like he hadn't slept in days. He sat across from me. Thanks for meeting me. I know things are really messed up right now. That's one way to put it. He took a breath. Look, I need you to understand something. I didn't know your mom stole that money. Audrey told me you'd agreed to contribute to the wedding, that you were happy to help. I leaned back studying him. He seemed genuine. And you believed that? Even though I've never spoken to you about the wedding once? Audrey said you two had a complicated relationship, that you were more comfortable talking through your mom. I thought it was weird, but he trailed off, running a hand through his hair. I wanted to believe her. We're getting married in 7 weeks. So what changed? The cops showed up at her apartment Thursday to ask questions. I was there, heard everything. When they left, I asked her point blank if she knew the money was stolen. She broke down and admitted everything. That got my attention. Everything? Peter nodded, looking sick. Your mom didn't just steal your card that night. She'd been planning it for weeks. Had Audrey scope out your apartment during a visit 2 months ago to figure out where you kept your wallet, your documents, everything. Audrey was the one who suggested hitting the account at night when you'd be asleep and less likely to notice right away. My hands clenched into fists under the table. So Audrey wasn't just a passive beneficiary. She was an active participant. The whole surprised sister act was exactly that. An act. She planned this with Mom? I asked, keeping my voice level. Yeah. Apparently your mom had been trying to figure out how to access your money for months. Audrey's the one who pointed out you'd probably say no if asked directly, so they needed to just take it. And here I thought my trust issues couldn't get any worse. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Peter looked me in the eye. Because I'm not marrying someone who helps rob their own brother. I called off the wedding this morning. The words hung in the air between us. I hadn't expected that. You called it off? Gave her back the ring an hour before I came here. I told her I can't build a life with someone capable of that kind of deception. She's been calling and texting nonstop, but I blocked her. He pulled out his phone, showed me a string of increasingly frantic messages from Audrey. Peter, please. And it was Mom's idea, and I'll make it right. And finally, you're going to regret this. She also said she'd tell everyone I left her at the altar that I cheated, whatever makes her look like the victim. I'm prepared for it, though. I already told my family the truth. I respected that. Guy had a backbone. What do you need from me? Nothing, really. Nothing. Just wanted you to know that not everyone in this situation is against you, and I thought you should know the full extent of what they planned. There's more. Of course there was. Peter pulled out his phone again, opened his photos, and showed me screenshots of text messages between Audrey and Mom, plans to access my apartment, discussions about which vendors to book, even a message from Audrey saying Nick's too passive to actually follow through with charges. He'll fold once the wedding gets close. That one stung. Can I get copies of these? I asked. Already emailed them to you. Figure the cops might want them for their case. We talked for another 30 minutes. When we parted ways, Peter shook my hand. For what it's worth, I'm sorry you're dealing with this. Your family's been making you think you're the problem. You're not. They are. I drove home in a daze, mind racing. Audrey had actively worked with Mom to rob me, all while posting on social media about how excited she was for her wedding, how blessed she felt, how much she loved her family. The manipulation was breathtaking. That afternoon, I forwarded Peter's screenshots to Detective Bella. She called me 20 minutes later. Mr. Callahan, these messages change things significantly. If Audrey knowingly participated in planning the fraud, we can charge her as an accomplice. Are you prepared for that? I thought about all the times Audrey had gotten away with things growing up. The lies, the stolen money when we were kids, the time she wrecked my car and blamed it on me. Mom had always protected her, always made excuses. Yes, I said. Charge her. The following week was chaos. Detective Bella brought Audrey in for questioning Monday morning. Based on the text messages Peter provided, they had enough evidence to charge her as an accomplice to fraud. She was arrested Tuesday afternoon. My phone exploded with messages from family members. Again, all of them were outraged that I'd let the police arrest Audrey, like I'd personally showed up with handcuffs. The best part? Mom's lawyer called me Wednesday. His tone completely different from before. Professional panic. Mr. Callahan, given the recent developments with your sister's arrest, my client would like to propose a settlement. She'll return the full $15,000 immediately and cover all your legal costs. In exchange, no. Mr. Callahan, please listen. I said no. Your client had multiple chances to make this right. Now she gets to face the consequences. The prosecutor is talking about jail time, potentially 2 to 5 years for fraud and identity theft. Is that really what you want for your mother? What I want is for her to be held accountable, for once in her life. And honestly, what I wanted was to stop getting phone calls from expensive lawyers who bill by the minute. He tried a few more angles, family healing, fresh starts, thinking about the bigger picture. I shut all of it down. Finally, he sighed heavily. You're making a serious mistake, Mr. Callahan. This will haunt you. Nah, I can live with it. Friday afternoon brought the moment I'd been waiting for. Detective Bella called with an update. Mr. Callahan, your mother has been formally charged with credit card fraud, identity theft, and felony theft. Your sister's been charged as an accomplice. They're both looking at significant jail time if convicted. However, the prosecutor's office has indicated they'd be open to a plea deal if both defendants show remorse and make full restitution. What kind of plea deal? Probation, community service, criminal record, no jail time if they cooperate and pay everything back immediately. But there's a catch. They'd have to allocate in court. Admit what they did publicly. Allocution meant standing before a judge and confessing their crimes on the record. Public humiliation, legal consequences, and a permanent criminal record. When would this happen? Hearing scheduled for Monday. Both your mother and sister would need to agree to the terms by the end of day today. Otherwise, this goes to trial. I thanked her and hung up. Then I waited. Wondered if Mom would swallow her pride and take the deal, or if her ego would force a trial. My phone rang 2 hours later. Mom's number. I let it go to voicemail. She called 3 more times, then left a message. Her voice was shaking. Nick, please pick up. We need to talk about Monday. The lawyer says we should take the plea deal, that we don't have a choice, but that means admitting everything in court. Everyone will know. Please, there has to be another way. Call me back. I didn't respond. Saturday morning, Audrey tried calling from a different number, probably a friend's phone since I'd blocked her. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail too. Nick, it's me. Look, I know you're angry, but please don't let this go to court. Peter left me. The wedding's canceled. All my friends know what happened. I've lost everything. I'm begging you to drop the charges. I'll pay you back myself, I promise. I'll get a job. I'll do whatever it takes. Just please don't make us go through with this. Her voice cracked at the end. Then she sobbed. Part of me felt a twinge of something. Not quite sympathy, but maybe pity. Then I remembered her text to Mom. Nick's too passive to actually follow through. I didn't respond. Turns out I'm extremely passive. Passively watching this whole thing unfold from the comfort of my couch. Monday morning, I showed up at the courthouse. Detective Bella had told me I didn't have to be there, but I wanted to see this through. I wanted to watch them face what they'd done. Call it closure, call it petty. I call it both. The courtroom was small, filled with the usual mix of defendants, lawyers, and family members. I sat in the back row. Mom and Audrey were in the front with their lawyer, both dressed like they were attending a funeral. Audrey's eyes red from crying, going for that sympathetic defendant look. Cute. The judge, an older woman named Harper, called the case. Mom and Audrey stood as the charges were read out loud. Judge Harper looked at them over her glasses. How do you plead? The lawyer cleared his throat. Your Honor, both defendants wish to enter guilty pleas and accept the prosecution's plea agreement. Very well. Mrs. Callahan. Miss Callahan, you understand that by pleading guilty, you're admitting to these crimes on the record? That you'll have a criminal history? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Yes, Your Honor. Audrey just nodded, unable to speak. Then allocate. Tell me what you did. This was it. The moment of truth. Mom took a shaky breath and began speaking, her voice hollow. I entered my son's apartment without permission in the middle of the night. I took his credit card from his desk. I used it to make charges totaling $15,000 for my daughter's wedding expenses. I did this knowing he had refused to give me the money. I did this intentionally and without his consent. Judge Harper turned to Audrey. And you, Miss Callahan? Audrey's voice cracked. I helped plan it. I told my mother where my brother kept his credit card. I knew the money was being taken without permission. I spent that money on my wedding knowing it was stolen. The courtroom was silent. Judge Harper stared at them for a long moment. Beautiful. This court accepts your guilty pleas. You'll each serve 3 years probation, complete 200 hours of community service, and make restitution of $15,000 with an initial payment due in 30 days and the remainder on a probation schedule. You'll also attend court-ordered counseling. Any violation of probation terms will result in immediate jail time. They both nodded, humiliated. As everyone filed out of the courtroom, Mom caught sight of me in the back row. Our eyes met. Hers were filled with tears, with defeat, with something that might have been regret. I felt, well, dandy. Outside the courthouse, Audrey tried to approach me. Her lawyer pulled her back, probably afraid she'd make things worse. She called out anyway. Nick, please can we talk? I walked to my car without responding, got in, and drove away. 3 days after the court hearing, my phone started ringing again. Mom first, then Audrey, then various family members. All of them wanting to talk, to work things out, to move past this. I ignored all of them for 48 hours. Let them stew in the consequences of their actions. Let them wonder if I'd ever speak to them again. Then Friday morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Answered it out of curiosity. Is this Nick Callahan? A woman's voice, professional and clipped. Yeah. Who's this? I'm Jennifer Walters from Cornerstone Bank. I'm calling regarding Eleanor Callahan and Audrey Callahan. They've listed you as a point of contact for a loan application. My blood ran cold. What loan application? They're applying for a joint personal loan of $15,000 to make restitution payment to you as ordered by the court. However, given their recent criminal convictions, the application has been flagged. We need to verify some information with you. So they were trying to get a loan to pay me back, probably at a terrible interest rate which they'd then blame me for somehow. I could already hear it. Nick forced us to take out a predatory loan. I'm not involved in their financial decisions, I said firmly. Whatever they choose to do is their business. Understood. I just needed to confirm you're the victim in their fraud case. We've verified through public records, so that's all I needed. Thank you for your time. She hung up. I sat there thinking. The 30-day deadline for restitution was approaching, and they didn't have the money. Mom probably couldn't access her trust fund yet, and Audrey had no income. Good. That afternoon, I finally called my dad. Nick, been trying to reach you, saw the court records. Heck of a week. You could say that. Listen, I need to know about executing the forfeiture clause in Grandpa's trust. Mom was convicted of fraud against me. That triggers the clause, right? He was quiet for a moment. Yeah, it does. You want to go through with it? Yeah, I want to enforce it. I'll send you the trustee documentation. You'll need to file notice with the court and the trust administrator. Takes about 60 days to process, but once it's done, her share gets redistributed. You'll get the largest portion since you're the victim. And Audrey? Her share's tied to the same clause. If she's convicted of fraud against family, she loses it too. Both of them forfeit a combined $225,000. I let that sink in. 225 grand. More than enough to cover what they'd stolen from me 15 times over. Do it, I said. File the paperwork. That evening, I drove to my mom's house for the first time since the theft. Didn't go inside. Just sat in my car across the street watching. The lights were on. I could see shadows moving around inside. Wondered what they were saying, if they were fighting, if they were crying. Probably planning which relative to guilt trip next. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. I know you're outside. Please come in. We need to talk. Of course she'd seen me. Woman had eyes like a hawk. I got out of the car and walked to the front door. It opened before I could knock. Mom stood there looking like she'd aged 10 years and 2 weeks. I stepped inside. Audrey was on the couch looking equally wrecked. We need to discuss the restitution payment, Mom said, gesturing to the dining room table covered in papers. Loan applications, budget spreadsheets, bank statements. We don't have $15,000 in liquid cash. The bank's offering a loan, but the interest rate is 23%. It'll take us 5 years to pay it off. Not my problem, I said flatly. Audrey's head snapped up. What do you mean, not your problem? You're the one who pressed charges? You're the one who put us in this position. No, you're the ones who stole from me. How can you be so heartless? Audrey stood up, voice rising. Family forgives each other. You're supposed to... I'm supposed to what? I cut her off. Let you rob me and say thank you? That's not how family works, Audrey. That's how abuse works. And also, pretty sure the family doesn't case your apartment like a heist movie. But maybe I missed that Hallmark special. Mom held up a hand. Everyone calm down. Nick, please. There has to be a way we can work this out. What if we set up a payment plan with you directly? Smaller amounts over time? You mean like the 12-month plan your lawyer proposed? That I already rejected? We're desperate, Mom said. And for once, there was no manipulation in her voice. If we take this loan, we'll be in debt for years. Audrey can't find work with a criminal record. I might lose my job when they run the background check for my renewal certification. We're drowning here. I looked at both of them, at the ruins of their lives. Part of me felt satisfaction, but another part of me, the part that remembered family dinners and birthday parties and Mom teaching me to ride a bike, felt a flicker of something. Not forgiveness, not yet. Maybe never, but something softer than pure rage. Here's what's going to happen, I said slowly. You're going to take that loan. You're going to pay me back every penny within 30 days like the court ordered. And then you're both going to therapy. Real therapy, not court-mandated counseling. You're going to figure out why you thought it was okay to treat me like your personal ATM for 25 years. Audrey opened her mouth to argue, but I held up a hand. And if you actually do the work, actually change, actually show real remorse over the course of several years, maybe we can rebuild something. But it won't be what it was. It'll never be what it was. Because that version of our family was built on you two using me, and I'm done being used. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Nick, please. There's something else. The trust fund. Your father mentioned you're enforcing the forfeiture clause. That's our future. That's our security. So Dad had already contacted them. Good. Yeah. You committed fraud against me. Grandpa's trust is clear about what happens when you do that. That's $200,000, Audrey shouted. That's my inheritance. You can't just take it. I'm not taking it. You're forfeiting it. Big difference. Grandpa saw this coming. He knew what you both were capable of and built in protection for the family. Now that protection's being triggered because you proved him right. Mom sank into a chair, face in her hands. We'll have nothing. No savings. No nest egg. Nothing. You'll have what everyone else has. What you earn through your own work. Welcome to how the rest of us live. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by Audrey's quiet crying. I felt no triumph. Just a weird emptiness, like closing the door on a chapter of my life I'd never wanted to write in the first place. I'm going now, I said, heading toward the door. You've got 27 days to make the restitution payment. After that, we'll see. Nick, wait. Mom's voice stopped me at the threshold. Do you hate us? I turned back, saw not the manipulative mother who'd stolen from me, but a broken woman who'd destroyed her own family through greed and favoritism. No, I said honestly. I don't hate you. I just don't trust you. And I don't know if I ever will again. That's on you to fix, not me. I walked out, got in my car, and drove away. 4 weeks later, the initial restitution payment hit my account on the last possible day before they'd be in violation of probation. I deposited it, watched my savings balance return to where it should be, and felt a weight lift off my shoulders. 2 months after that, the trust forfeiture was finalized. I received a check for $140,000, my share of the redistributed funds. Put it in a high-yield savings account and didn't touch it. That money was my future, my emergency fund, my security blanket that no one could steal. Well, they could try. But we've established how that works out. Mom texted me occasionally. Updates about her therapy sessions, apologies that felt more genuine each time. Small attempts to rebuild a bridge between us. I responded sometimes. Short, polite, but distant. Audrey stopped reaching out after I didn't respond to her 5th or 6th apology text. Heard through family that Peter had moved to another state, that she was working at a call center trying to rebuild her life. Good. She needed to learn what actual work felt like. They'd tried to drown me with their entitlement and manipulation. Instead, they drowned themselves. And me? I learned to swim. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. At my dad's birthday dinner, my selfish mom announced, "You're not family anymore." Everyone cheered. I laughed and said, "Let's see how you handle without me." I closed the joint account, stopped paying the lease for the cars, And now they realize they made the stupidest mistake of their life and wants to reconcile. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Edit. Holy crap, this blew up overnight. RIP my inbox. Thanks for the awards, kind strangers. To address some common questions. 1. Yes, this is my real life, sadly. 2. No, I don't feel bad about it. 3. Yes, I have screenshots, evidence of everything. 4. No, I won't be reconciling with them anytime soon. TLDR. After years of financially supporting my entitled family, they publicly disowned me at my dad's birthday dinner when my mom made the announcement, not expecting me to actually cut them off. When I did, they tried to sue me, committed identity theft, and spread lies. I got revenge by exposing their fraud, getting them investigated, and ultimately forcing them to become self-sufficient adults. I, 32 male, a software engineer at a mid-sized tech company in Seattle. Not the fancy FANG level stuff, but I make decent money, around $175,000 plus bonuses and stock options. Growing up was rough in ways that didn't seem obvious at first. My dad, Tom, 58 male, worked at the post office but got injured on the job when I was in high school and hasn't worked in 15 years. My mom, Karen, 57 female, tried being an Instagram influencer at 50 plus. Yeah, seriously. But mostly lives off my bank account while calling herself a lifestyle consultant. My younger sister, Ashley, 29 female, dropped out of 3 different colleges I paid for and now calls herself a social media consultant, despite having maybe 2,000 followers across all platforms. Financially supporting them started small when I landed my first coding job, but over the years it snowballed until I was basically funding their entire lifestyle. House, cars, credit cards, vacations, the works. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that they'd get back on their feet, but deep down I knew they were just using me. So I guess I should start with the night everything blew up. My dad's 58th birthday dinner. My mom picked this crazy expensive steakhouse called the Capitol Grill, where the cheapest steak was like $85. Not because my dad even liked the food, but because of the ambiance. Valet parking, dim lights, waiters that bow like you're royalty. That kind of place where they don't even put prices on the women's menus, which was a joke since I was the one paying anyway. The bill would easily hit $2,000 plus with the wine they were ordering. I showed up like 25 minutes late. Didn't do it on purpose, but didn't exactly rush either, after spending 14 hours debugging some asshole VP's urgent project that could have waited until Monday. When I walked in, they were already demolishing appetizers that probably cost more than what most people spend on groceries for a week. Mom gave me this dismissive wave like I was some random busboy. Dad didn't even look up from his plate. Ashley glanced at her phone like I'd interrupted something important on TikTok. There were about 14 people at the table. Some cousins, a couple aunts, my mom's life coach Diane, who charges mom $200 an hour for advice like manifest your truth, and 3 women I'd never seen before who were probably just there to tell mom how fierce her new $400 haircut looked. I sat at the far end of the table, as far from the action as I could get. The conversation was exactly what you'd expect. Ashley going on about her brand collaborations like it was some groundbreaking business. Spoiler, she made maybe $600 last year from it. Dad making these comments about how some of us understand real work, directed at me obviously, even though I literally fund their whole damn life. My uncle Pete, 55 male, asking when I was going to invest in his latest get-rich-quick scheme, selling some kind of nutritional supplements that definitely weren't a pyramid scheme. Narrator, they were. Mom just smiling at everyone like she was Kim Kardashian receiving peasants. Every time the waiter came by, they'd order more stuff without even glancing at me. Another $300 bottle of wine, seafood towers, extra sides. Nobody said thanks or even acknowledged that I would be covering the tab. It was just expected, the same way it had been expected for the past 8 years. I was just counting the minutes till I could leave, figuring I'd do the usual. Wait till dessert, slide my credit card to the waiter, make some excuse about an early meeting, and bounce. That was the routine. That's when Mom stood up and clinked her glass for a toast. So everyone shuts up and turns to Mom. I'm expecting the usual cheesy crap. To my wonderful husband, or some inside joke from when they were in college that nobody gets, but we all pretend to laugh at. But then she says, to a new beginning. Starting today, we are no longer a family. For a second, I thought it was some weird joke. Like she'd follow it with something about, we're becoming a dynasty, or some other BS. But she didn't. People actually started clapping. Not loud, but enough to make it real. My cousin Tyler, 27 male, even whispered, "About time," under his breath. I looked at Dad. He wasn't shocked or surprised, just smug, like this was all part of the plan. That's when something in me snapped. I started laughing. Not a real laugh. More like that stupid kind of giggle that happens when something is so effed up, you don't know how else to react. Then I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the keys to the $78,000 Tesla Model Y I bought them last year. Yes, I know. I'm an idiot. Dropped them on the table with a clunk that made everyone jump. "Then I guess you won't need this," I said. Mom's smile froze. Dad's hand stopped midway to his wine glass. Then I pulled out my phone, logged into the joint trust account I'd set up for all of them. The one that paid for their $4,200 monthly mortgage, Ashley's $2,800 downtown apartment, all the credit cards they somehow maxed out every month, usually around $15,000 total, and closed it. Zeroed it out. Done. The look on their faces, holy shit. The whole table went completely silent. Everyone was frozen like someone hit pause on a movie. Ashley finally spoke up. That's it?" she asked, like she couldn't believe I'd actually grow a spine. I nodded. "Yeah, that's it." She laughed, not a funny laugh. More like she thought I was playing some stupid joke and she was waiting for the punchline. "You can't just cut us off," Dad said, his voice getting that fake emotional quiver he uses when he's trying to manipulate me. "We're your family." "Not anymore," I said, throwing Mom's words back at her. "You just said so yourself. Starting today, remember?" Mom's face turned red. "Now listen here." "No, you listen," I cut him off. "For 10 years, I've paid your bills, bought your cars, funded your lifestyle. I've transferred over $700,000 to you guys. And the thanks I get is you publicly disowning me? Nah, I'm done." Then I stood up, looked around the table, and said, "Dinner's on them tonight. Enjoy." And I walked out. About half an hour later, I found Ashley hiding behind one of those fancy curtains near the back of the restaurant. She was screaming into her phone, pacing back and forth, yanking at her hair like a crazy person. When she saw me, she turned and started yelling that I couldn't do this, that I didn't understand what I was doing, that I was destroying her influencer career before it even got started. "What influencer career, Ashley?" I asked. "You have 2,000 followers, and you haven't had a sponsored post in 8 months. "I was building something," she screeched. "I have partnerships lined up. I was going to collab with Fitness Babe XO next week. Well, I guess you'll need to find a way to pay for it yourself," I said. Then I walked away and left her there. That night, I didn't go home. I checked into a $500 per night hotel downtown and sat at the bar for a few hours with my phone on silent, watching whatever sports game was on the TV. I didn't even care who was playing. When I finally turned my phone back on around 2 a.m., there were 23 missed calls. 11 from Ashley, 6 from Mom, and the rest from random numbers. Probably relatives who suddenly remembered I existed now that the money was gone. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, took a long shower, and for the first time in years, I slept without anxiety. Here's the thing. This shit didn't start overnight. Since I got my first decent tech job at 22, I've been the family bank. It started small, helping Mom with just this month's utility bills when I was making $65,000 as a junior dev. Then it was Dad's truck payment, because his disability wasn't enough. Then Ashley's first semester of college. She dropped out after 4 months. Then their mortgage when they were about to get foreclosed on. Every fucking time, there was some story about how it was the last time they'd need help. Every time, there was some promise about how they were getting back on their feet. Every time, they'd be calling again within weeks. By the time I was 27 and making real money, crossed $120,000, they didn't even bother with the stories anymore. It was just expected. Mom would text me, need $3,500 for house stuff, and I'd transfer it. No questions asked because the one time I did ask, I got a 3-day guilt trip about how I was abandoning family and forgetting where I came from. And the next morning, I drove to my actual house. Not their house, my house. The $1.2 million place I bought last year that I actually lived in and paid for. They hadn't even visited in over a year. Not since I stopped hosting Thanksgiving after catching them going through my home office looking for financial documents. I made coffee and turned on the news. It was quiet, peaceful. Then the doorbell rang. It was my Aunt Kathy, Mom's sister-in-law. She was standing there with a concerned look and a casserole dish. Classic Midwestern passive-aggressive move. "I heard what happened," she said. "Can I come in?" I let her in because I was curious how fast the family narrative would change. We sat at my kitchen table, and she spilled everything. Dad's announcement wasn't just some random thing. They'd been planning it for weeks. Mom and Dad had already told a bunch of people they were cutting the cord with me, claiming I was toxic, and had been manipulating them financially and emotionally for years. They framed the toast like some brave act of reclaiming their independence. Except they never expected me to call their bluff. They thought I'd laugh it off, maybe storm out, make a scene. They never thought I'd actually take the car back or shut down the money. They thought I needed them to keep playing this little game we'd been playing for years. Kathy said Mom called her crying around midnight, not because I cut them off, but because she couldn't access one of her accounts to book a hotel for her post-birthday retreat. I'd forgotten I had that one under my name too. They've been talking about this for months, Kathy said, asking which relatives might take their side, figuring out how to spin it so you look like the bad guy. And you're just telling me this now? I asked. She looked down at her hands. I should have said something sooner. I didn't think they'd actually go through with it. I thanked her for coming, but told her I needed some time alone. After she left, I sat down and made a list of every account I had that was connected to them in any way. Joint accounts, co-signed loans, shared credit cards, insurance policies. It was longer than I expected. Much longer. 2 days after the dinner, I got served papers at my office. A formal notice saying Mom and Dad were suing me for financial abuse of elderly dependents. The lawsuit claimed $840,000 in damages. I almost laughed out loud when I read it. The lawsuit claimed I'd coerced them into financial arrangements and used familial obligation to exert undue control over their resources. They framed everything, every loan, every car payment, every tuition check for Ashley, as if I'd been blackmailing them. The lawyer they found must have been either desperate or completely clueless about who was really bankrolling this lawsuit. The best part? Ashley joined in too. She sent an email to my company's general inbox claiming I'd harassed her, attaching screenshots of completely normal text messages I'd sent like, "The insurance payment for your car is due," as evidence. I guess she thought the more dramatic the story, the more likely someone would take her side. My boss called me into his office that afternoon. I figured I was in trouble, maybe even about to get fired. Instead, he slid the printed email across his desk and said, "Want to tell me what's going on?" So I did. Told him everything. About supporting my family for years. About the birthday dinner. About the lawsuit. He listened without interrupting, then said, "My brother did the same thing to me for 8 years. Nearly bankrupted me. Take whatever time you need to deal with this." And that's when my cousin Ryan, 31 male, called me. Ryan and I were close as kids but drifted apart when his parents, my mom's brother and his wife, moved to Colorado. He'd become a paralegal at a decent law firm and somehow heard about the lawsuit. "Dude, what the actual fuck is happening with Aunt Karen and Uncle Tom?" he asked. I gave him the short version. He was quiet for a minute, then said, "You know they tried to get my parents to join the lawsuit? Told them you'd been stealing from the whole family for years. My dad told them to get bent. Then he offered to help. Said he'd seen this kind of thing before. Families trying to weaponize the legal system to keep the money flowing. He said he'd make some calls, see what he could find out. 3 days later, Ryan sent me a text. Check your email. You're going to want to see this." The email contained audio recordings. Not just one or two, dozens of them. My mom on calls with various family members over the past 2 years, talking about me. "Mike's making stupid money now. We just need to keep him feeling guilty. We've got a system. Tom plays the angry dad. I cry a little. Ashley shows him some fake job application. And boom, another $10,000. He's such a sucker for the family bullshit. If he ever grows a pair, we're screwed." Turns out Ryan's mom, my Aunt Kathy, had been recording these calls because she was worried about how they were treating me, but didn't know how to bring it up. When the lawsuit happened, she gave everything to Ryan. I didn't respond publicly to the lawsuit. I didn't post anything on social media or try to defend myself. But I started building a case. Bank statements showing over $490,000 in transfers over 5 years. Voice recordings, text messages, where Mom asked for money for emergency roof repairs, and then posted vacation photos from Cancun the next week. But then something happened I didn't expect. Ryan, who had always been the quiet, play-by-the-rules guy, posted a detailed thread on Twitter, just laying out what financial abuse really looks like. When your cousin gets scapegoated by his entire family after being their ATM for 10 years. It blew up. Like, really blew up. Over 700,000 views in a day. He didn't name names, but people started piecing it together. Internet detectives found Ashley's Instagram and TikTok accounts and dragged her so hard she had to make everything private within 48 hours. One commenter found a post from 6 months ago where she'd bragged about getting my brother to fund my lifestyle and how she hadn't had a real job in 3 years. The internet did its thing, and suddenly her DMs were flooded with people calling her a leech. The lawsuit got withdrawn, but mom and dad weren't done. They started visiting relatives one by one, not to apologize, but to poison the well, saying I'd lost my mind, that I was cruel and vindictive, that I use money to punish love. But this time, people weren't buying it, and suddenly the phone calls I got weren't demands for money. They were apologies. I don't know what's gotten into your aunt and uncle. I always thought something was off, but I didn't want to say anything. I'm ashamed I stayed quiet so long. My Uncle Steve, Dad's younger brother, even sent me a lengthy email detailing how Dad had tried to borrow $25,000 from him last year, claiming it was for medical bills. Steve found out later it was actually for a timeshare in Florida. I should have warned you, he wrote. I just didn't want to get in the middle of family drama. I'm sorry. It got weird quiet after the lawsuit was dropped, like a storm that suddenly disappeared but left everyone standing around, waiting for the next crack of thunder. Mom and Dad stopped calling. Ashley went MIA online. I almost thought they'd finally gotten the message. But I knew them. Silence wasn't surrender. It was preparation. I didn't wait for whatever they were planning next. The funny thing about people who pretend to be independent is they always forget how many strings they've allowed someone else to hold. I started small and surgical. The Tesla was already gone, but I didn't just keep the money. I bought a 2008 Honda Civic for $4,500 cash and had it delivered to their driveway with a bow and a card that said, "Let's see how free you really are." They didn't thank me, but they didn't send it back either. Then I canceled the family phone plan that cost me $380 a month. Turns out none of them realized how much of their lives were tied to those phone numbers. Ashley lost access to all her social media accounts in one sweep because they were linked to that number. Mom couldn't get into her email where she kept all her password recovery info. Dad missed 3 golf outings with his buddies because nobody could reach him. I waited 3 days, then sent Ashley a screenshot of a message she'd posted 2 years ago begging me to help her set up her business line because she didn't understand contracts. Next came their streaming services. Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, Spotify Premium Family Plan, all canceled. Their smart home devices that were linked to my accounts, deactivated. The grocery delivery service they'd been using, account closed. But that was just the warm-up. The real hit came with the mortgage. I'd co-signed years ago because Dad's credit was garbage, like 520 score garbage, and Mom cried about losing the house her kids grew up in. I had a clause in the paperwork, a quiet one my lawyer suggested when I set it up. It said that if either party severed familial ties publicly, the agreement could be dissolved and repayment accelerated. It took less than 5 minutes to activate. Now they owed the bank a full payoff of $387,000 in 30 days. And that's when the real panic started. Mom called first. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail that started off calm, then cracked halfway through into something about betrayal. Dad showed up at my office. My assistant called and said some guy was downstairs yelling that I was destroying my own blood. I told her to call building security. When they escorted him out, he looked straight at the security camera in the lobby and gave it the finger. I clipped that footage and texted it to him. New family photo. But I wasn't done. Not even close. The thing about supporting someone financially for a decade is that you end up with a lot of access to their personal information. I knew their social security numbers, birth dates, mother's maiden names, all the stuff you need for identity verification. Not because I was snooping, but because I'd filled out countless forms for them over the years. I used that information to check their credit reports. What I found made my blood boil. Remember my cousin Ryan? Turns out he'd been doing more than just collecting evidence. He'd been talking to his boss at the law firm, a partner who specialized in elder financial fraud. They were interested in my case, not to defend me, but to use my family as an example. They've seen this pattern before, Ryan told me over pizza at my place. Adult children who weaponize elder care laws to extort money from successful relatives. The firm wants to establish some precedent to shut it down, so I gave them everything. All the recordings, all the bank statements, all the text messages. Then Ryan introduced me to someone else. Sarah, 36 female, a forensic accountant who worked with the firm occasionally. She had this no-nonsense vibe that made me think she'd seen every financial scam in the book. Your parents have been busy, she told me after a week of digging. They've been taking out credit cards in your name for at least 3 years. She showed me the evidence. 6 credit cards with combined limits of over $120,000, all maxed out. They'd used my SSN and an old address to apply. They'd been making minimum payments from the money I gave them for bills. It was identity theft, plain and simple. But Sarah found something else too. Dad's disability was a sham. He'd been working under the table for his brother's construction company for years while collecting government benefits. Mom had a secret bank account where she'd stashed almost $45,000 of my emergency money. And the fucking house I'd been helping them keep, wasn't even in their names anymore. They'd transferred the deed to Ashley 6 months ago, probably to protect it from exactly the kind of situation they were in now. This is fraud on multiple levels, Sarah said. Tax fraud, identity theft, welfare fraud, mortgage fraud. They could go to prison for this. I sat there staring at the stack of documents she'd brought, trying to process it all. These were my parents, the people who were supposed to protect me, and they'd been stealing from me, lying to me for years. What do you want to do? Ryan asked. I didn't answer right away. Part of me wanted to just walk away, to cut my losses and never look back. But another part of me, a part that had been silenced for too long, wanted justice. I want them to face consequences, I finally said. Real consequences. I was done playing nice. Ryan's boss helped me file a formal identity theft report with the police. I reported Dad's disability fraud to the relevant authorities. I froze all my credit accounts and formally disputed every card they'd opened in my name. And I contacted the mortgage company with evidence of the fraudulent deed transfer. Within 2 weeks, their world was collapsing. The credit card companies were demanding immediate payment. The disability office suspended Dad's benefits, pending investigation. The mortgage company initiated foreclosure proceedings. But here's where it gets interesting. My old college roommate Chris, 33, worked at the local news station. I hadn't planned to take things public, but when Chris called and said he'd heard rumors about a financial abuse lawsuit that backfired, I decided it was time. I gave Chris an anonymous interview, face blurred, voice altered, just telling my story. How I'd supported my family for years, how they'd tried to sue me when I stopped, how they'd committed fraud and identity theft. The segment aired on a Tuesday night with the title, Family Financial Abuse, The Hidden Epidemic. By Wednesday afternoon, it had been picked up by 3 national news outlets. By Thursday, it was trending on Twitter. Family freeloaders became a hashtag people used to share their own stories of family financial abuse. Ashley's influencer contacts dropped her immediately. Dad's brother fired him from the under-the-table job. Mom's life coach, Diane, publicly denied ever knowing her. Then came the coup de grace. I'd been quietly documenting every family gathering for years. Just audio recordings on my phone. Nothing fancy. I'd done it originally to remind myself I wasn't crazy when they gaslighted me about what was said or promised. Now, I compiled the greatest hits into one 17-minute audio file and sent it to everyone in the extended family. Mom drunkenly bragging about how she'd manipulated me into buying her a new car. Dad laughing about how he'd guilt-tripped me into paying for a medical procedure that was actually a fishing trip to Alaska. Ashley telling her friends I was her personal ATM and how she'd never have to work a real job as long as I was dumb enough to keep funding her lifestyle. The family response was nuclear. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years were calling them, texting them, commenting on their, now private but still viewable to family, social media. Even my grandparents, who had always taken Mom and Dad's side, were appalled. I knew they were takers, my grandmother told me on the phone, her voice shaking with anger. But I never imagined it was this bad. Within a month, they were basically persona non grata at every family event. No one would take their calls. No one would let them crash on their couch. No one would lend them money. For the first time in their adult lives, my parents and sister were truly on their own. It had been almost 2 months since that birthday dinner. 2 months of silence from my immediate family while their world burned down around them. I'd moved on, focusing on my work, reconnecting with friends I'd neglected, while dealing with my family's constant demands. I'd even started dating again, something I hadn't had time for in years. It's then on a random Sunday morning, the doorbell rang. It was all 3 of them, Mom, Dad, Ashley, standing on my doorstep like some twisted family portrait. Mom had clearly been crying. Her expensive mascara was smeared. Dad looked like he hadn't slept in days. Ashley was fidgeting with her phone case, not making eye contact. "Can we talk?" Mom asked, her voice small. I almost shut the door in their faces, but curiosity got the better of me. I let them in, but didn't offer them anything to drink, didn't invite them to sit down, just stood in my entryway with my arms crossed. Dad spoke first. "Son, we've made some mistakes." I actually laughed out loud. "Mistakes? You committed felony identity theft. You tried to sue me after I supported you for a decade. You called me. What was it in that lawsuit? Manipulative and abusive. Those aren't mistakes. Those are choices. Ashley started crying, actually sobbing. They're going to take the house. I have nowhere to go. My followers keep sending me hate messages. I can't even get a job interview because everyone's seen the news story. Sounds like consequences, I said. Mom stepped forward, reaching for my arm. I stepped back. Mike, please. We're desperate. Your father's disability has been cut off. They're investigating him for fraud. The credit card companies are threatening to press charges. We could go to jail. Again, consequences, I said. Dad's face hardened. You'd let your own parents go to jail? After everything we did for you? And that's when I lost it. 10 years of pent-up rage just exploded. What exactly did you do for me? Did you pay for my college? No, I worked full-time while taking classes. Did you help with my first apartment? No, I lived in a shithole with 3 roommates to save money. Did you ever put my needs before yours? Number. You took and took and took and expected me to keep giving because we share DNA. I pulled out my phone and showed them a spreadsheet I'd made. Every transfer, every payment, every loan over the past decade. The total at the bottom, $733,846.29. That's what you took from me, not including the identity theft, not including the emotional cost, not including the opportunities I missed because I was too busy funding your lifestyle. Mom was full-on wailing now. Dad looked like he might be sick. Ashley had slumped against the wall. We have nowhere else to go, Ashley whispered, her voice cracking. I tried applying for jobs, but no one will hire me. My credit is destroyed. I can't even get an apartment. I'm going to lose everything, Dad said, his voice hollow. They're talking about jail time for the disability fraud. The bank is foreclosing on the house, Mom added, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. We'll be homeless in 30 days. They all stared at me, waiting for me to cave, to offer them money, to bail them out one more time. It was the same look they'd given me 100 times before, but this time I didn't feel guilty. I felt strong. This is rock bottom, I told them. This is what happens when you treat people like ATMs instead of family. This is what happens when you live beyond your means and expect others to foot the bill. Mom started to speak, but I held up my hand. I'm not finished. For 10 years, I've enabled your behavior. I've made it easy for you to avoid responsibility. I've been your safety net, your bank account, your fallback plan. And in return, you've lied to me, stolen from me, and tried to destroy my reputation when I finally said, enough. I walked to my desk and pulled out 3 envelopes. I'd prepared them weeks ago, hoping I wouldn't need them, but knowing I probably would. These are the terms, I said, handing them each one. Non-negotiable. Inside each envelope was a different document. For Dad, enrollment information for a job training program for seniors and a voucher I'd paid for covering the full cost. For Mom, paperwork for a small studio apartment I'd rented for 6 months, enough time for her to get on her feet, and information about actual job openings in the area. For Ashley, an acceptance letter to a vocational program in medical coding and billing that a friend of mine ran. I'm not giving you money, I explained. I'm giving you one last chance to become actual functioning adults. Take it or leave it. But if you leave it, we're done forever. I'll press charges for the identity theft. I'll make sure every potential employer knows exactly who you are and what you did. I'll make the nuclear option I've taken so far look like a warm-up. Dad started to argue, but Mom grabbed his arm. They whispered furiously to each other. Ashley just stared at the letter in her hands. Why would you do this after everything? She finally asked. Because unlike you 3, I understand what family should actually mean. This is the last help you'll ever get from me. Make it count. They left without another word. I didn't expect them to take the offers, honestly. I figured they'd find some other relative to leech off of, some other story to tell. But a week later, Ryan called. You're not going to believe this. Uncle Tom showed up at that job training program today. 2 days after that, the property management company for Mom's studio apartment confirmed she'd picked up the keys. Ashley was the last holdout, but 3 weeks later, my friend who ran the vocational program texted me. Your sister enrolled today. Didn't look happy about it. But she's here. I didn't reach out to any of them. Didn't check in. Didn't ask how they were doing. That part of my life was over. 6 months later, I got a letter from Dad. Just a few lines. The program got me a job at a warehouse. It's hard work, but it's honest. Thank you for not letting me go to jail. I don't expect forgiveness. A month after that, a text from Mom with a photo of her employee badge from a local hotel, where she'd gotten a job as a receptionist. Nothing from Ashley until almost a year later, when she sent an email. I completed the program, got a job at a doctor's office. The pay is okay. I still hate that you did this to us, but I'm not living in my car anymore, so I guess that's something. I never responded to any of them. Never will. As for me, I took some of that money I'd been wasting on them and invested it. Started my own software consulting firm. Bought a cabin in the mountains where I spend weekends with people who actually care about me. Ryan and his wife have a standing invitation. So do the other cousins who stood by me. The parasite family I was born into, they get to live with the consequences of treating their son like an ATM. And I get to live free. Sometimes the best revenge isn't making people suffer. It's forcing them to finally grow the fuck up while you move on without them. An edit 2. Some people are saying I was too harsh on them and should have given them more chances. Let me be clear, they had 10 years of chances. 10 years of support, of second chances, of just this one more time. If you still think I should have kept supporting them, feel free to send them your money. I'm sure they'd appreciate it. Edit 3. Yes, I'm still monitoring the identity theft situation. No, they haven't tried to open any new accounts in my name. Yes, I changed all my passwords, security questions, and got a new phone number. Trust me, I'm not letting my guard down. Edit 4. For those asking about an update, it's been about 2 years since all this went down. Dad is still at the warehouse job and got promoted to shift supervisor. Mom quit the hotel after 8 months and now works as an admin at a dental office. Ashley is still at the doctor's office and apparently dating one of the nurses there. None of them have asked me for money again. I consider that a win. My dad fired me from the family business I built because I canceled my sister's wedding reservations after she uninvited me. He handed my job to her fiancé. Now their dream business collapsed, and I watched the family that used me lose everything they thought they controlled. Hey, Reddit. My family thought I existed to fix their messes and pay their bills. One day I stopped, and everything fell apart. They called it betrayal. I call it finally waking up. But let's start from the beginning. It was close to 10 at night, and the office was empty except for the sound of the printer and my keyboard. I'd been working on a commercial bid worth about $75,000 for one of our repeat clients. I remember feeling tired but good about it. The company needed the deal, and I was finally seeing a light after 2 rough months. My phone buzzed. Group text from my sister Tara. You're out of the wedding planning. Evan thinks it's best. That was it. No explanation, no thanks for everything, nothing. Just that one line. I sat there for a minute staring at it, waiting for maybe a follow-up, but the chat stayed quiet. I scrolled up and saw the name of the group, Family Wedding Crew, with Mom, Dad, Tara, and her fiancé Evan in it. My own parents were in there, and neither said a word. I called home. Mom picked up. Don't start drama, Lucas, she sighed. Drama? I said. I just got a text saying I'm out of the wedding. I already paid $12,000 for this thing. You're making everything about money again? She said, like it was the worst crime in the world to keep track of what you spent. Then Dad's voice in the background. Let them handle it, Lucas. You're too controlling. I'm handling the bills you told me to handle, I said. That's what I was doing. Dad, they'll figure it out. You always make things harder than they need to be. I hung up before I said something worse. I leaned back in my chair and looked around the office. The framed photo from last year's company barbecue sat on my desk. Everyone's smiling, including Tara and Evan, who at the time were calling me the rock of the family. I opened my laptop again, clicked through folders, and told Nadia, our bookkeeper, to back up every document with my name on it. All of it? She asked, rubbing her eyes. Yeah. Contracts, invoices, accounts, everything I signed or paid for. She didn't ask why. She'd worked with me long enough to know when something wasn't right. While she worked on the backup, I scrolled through my email receipts. The venue deposit, $5,000, paid from my personal card. The florist deposit, $800. The tuxedo rentals charged to our company Amex issued in my name, just for convenience. The honeymoon deposit under my name because Evan's credit card limit was too low. All those transfers and confirmations sitting neatly in my inbox. Then I opened my spreadsheet and added a new line at the bottom. Wedding total, $12,430 to date. I wasn't angry, not really. It just hit me how easy it was for them to erase me from something I practically built for them. Tara had been stressing for months about how Evan's income was up and down, and Mom kept saying, "Don't worry, Lucas will handle it." So I did, because that's what I'd always done. I thought back to December, when the venue needed the deposit. Tara called crying about how they'd lose the date if they didn't pay that day. I paid it. Then the dress, she said she'd Venmo me next week. That was 4 months ago. Then the business payroll issue. Dad said, "Spot us for 2 weeks, son. We've got a slow client." I covered it. The 2 weeks turned into 6. It wasn't one big betrayal. It was 100 small ones, and I'd let all of them slide. Nadia finished the backup and handed me a flash drive. Here, she said. I slipped it in my pocket. Thanks. Go home. I'll lock up. Before leaving, I deleted the wedding group chat from my phone. Not the old family thread. That one I'd only muted. This was the wedding-only thread. Then I opened my work email and made a new folder for the wedding payments. I dragged every confirmation, invoice, and message into it. The list filled half the screen. The office was dark except for the monitor's glow. The quote for that client was still open, waiting for the last numbers. I saved the file, closed the laptop, and turned off the lights. As I was walking out, my phone buzzed again. A text from Mom. Please don't make this harder for your sister. No thank you, no, we'll talk about it. Just another command dressed up as a favor. I didn't answer. By the time I got to the parking lot, the night air felt cold. I stood there a second, looking back at the office windows, and thinking how much time I'd wasted trying to keep everyone else's world running while mine just sat on pause. That's when it clicked. If they wanted me out of the wedding, fine. They could also be out of my wallet, out of my patience, out of my spare time fixing every problem they created. I unlocked my truck, dropped the flash drive into the center console, and turned on the engine. They cut me out on a group text, I said to no one. Then I put the truck in gear. Fine. They can handle the bill. Now you know what happened. Let me tell you a bit about us. My name's Lucas Ward, I'm 32, and I run operations for our family's construction company, Ward Construction and Design. My dad, Gerald, started it in the late 90s. Mom, Denise, handles client relations, which mostly means gossip and lunch meetings. I'm the one who actually runs the crews, manages payroll, handles bids, all of it. My sister Tara doesn't work there. She's an influencer, or tries to be. Her fiancé Evan hovers around, always talking about big opportunities. The next morning, I sat down at my desk, opened the shared accounts, and started checking what had my name on it. Every transaction, every invoice. It wasn't anger driving me. It was curiosity that had run out of patience. Dad's been using the same lines my whole life. You're lucky, you make more. Mom always added her version. We'll pay you back when the refinance goes through. There was always another refinance. Another excuse. I kept fixing everything because that's what I'd always done. While I was sorting through receipts, I thought about how this pattern never stopped. Even at work, Dad bragged about me to clients. My son's the brains of this place. Then called me kid in front of the crew. I'd built this company into something organized, profitable, stable, but I was still treated like a spare part they could swap out whenever they wanted. Around noon, our attorney, Victor Hale, dropped by to finalize some permits for a small commercial job. He's the type who talks like every problem's minor paperwork. We went over signatures, project numbers, all normal until he flipped through a folder and said, by the way, that ownership transfer went through. Evan's now a 15% partner. I stopped. Partner where? Here, Victor said, tapping the company name on the header. Ward Construction. I frowned. With what money? He squinted at the file. They reclassified your prior loan advances as a capital contribution under your name, then issued Evan 15% against that papered equity. I didn't say anything for a full 10 seconds. You're telling me I paid for it? He shrugged. That's what it says. He closed the folder. I assumed you approved it. He was gone before I even stood up. I walked straight to Nadia's desk. She looked up, confused. We're changing access, I said. Today. To what? All company cards except mine. Cancel them. Auto payments? Off. Move active logins to my account only. Do it quietly. She blinked. That's going to upset them. They'll live, I said. Start with the AMEX. She opened her laptop. I stood beside her until she confirmed the deactivation email. I wasn't taking any more chances. Back in my office, I opened our bank portal and looked through the recent expenses. Several payments labeled consulting fee and marketing bonus sat under Evan's name. They hadn't been there 2 weeks ago. I screenshotted everyone and saved them to a flash drive. I pulled the drawer open and took out every paper statement I had from the past year. Each line told the same story. Me paying, them promising. Around 3, Mom called. I answered, because I knew she'd keep trying. Your father says the company cards aren't working, she said. They're canceled. Why would you do that? Evan needs access now that he's a partner. He can use his own, I said. That's not very supportive, Lucas. I'm done supporting grown adults, I told her. If you wanted him to have control, you should have used your money, not mine. She sighed into the phone. You're always so cold. Maybe if you stopped taking advantage, I'd warm up again. Then I hung up. By late afternoon, I'd changed passwords, updated signatories, and created a private email backup. Nadia came by with printed confirmation reports. All cards but yours are disabled. Auto pays off. Payroll lists on your desk. Thanks, I said. Go home early. She nodded, still worried. When she left, I pulled the accounts payable vendor list. Every name matched except two, both tied to Evan's consulting contacts. I'd never met them. No W-9s, no addresses. Shell vendors. I saved copies and bundled the vendor mismatches into a clean packet. Then I emailed them to myself, subject line personal record, like I'd done 100 times before when covering for my family's mess. Only this time, I wasn't covering anything. At 6, Dad walked in, irritated. What the hell did you do to the cards? They were being misused, I said. You don't get to decide that. I just did, I said. If Evan's a partner, he can fund his own expenses. His face turned red. You think you're smarter than everyone else? No, I said, packing my laptop. Just more careful. He started another sentence, but I was already at the door. That night at home, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open and added a final note under the spreadsheet I'd started the night before. Personal funds spent on family or business. Unreimbursed. $48,230. Next to it, I typed a simple line, no more. I shut the laptop and stared at the dark screen for a second. I'd been raised to believe that being responsible meant fixing everything. Paying, managing, smoothing things over. Turns out, all it did was make me an easy target. The next morning, I was done thinking. I came into the office early, opened my laptop, and pulled up every wedding vendor contract still tied to my name. The first one was the venue. I called, gave them the contract number, and said, cancel it. The booking's under Lucas Ward. The manager hesitated for a second, then confirmed. Refunds go back to the original cards. I went down the list. The florist, the caterer, the tux rental, the travel agency for the honeymoon. Each call was short and polite. I didn't explain or justify anything. When they asked if something happened, I said, plans changed. Refund confirmations hit my inbox by afternoon. The funds posted over the next few business days. I made a new folder on my desktop. Refunds_confirmed. Dropped each PDF inside as soon as it came through. That stack would become Exhibit A. It felt like sorting laundry. No emotion. Just cleaning up what was already mine. By 10, I was halfway through checking our job site invoices when the office door slammed open. Evan walked in wearing his usual too-tight shirt and cheap cologne. You can't just pull funding, he said, voice sharp. I didn't even look up. Wasn't funding, I said. Was a refund. Big difference. He stepped closer to my desk. You think you're hurting me? You're just screwing over your sister. Then maybe she should have checked who signed the checks before she sent that text, I said. He stood there breathing hard, trying to look tough. You've got a problem with me. Take it up directly, he said. I am, I said. You're terminated as an employee. Partner or not, you're cut off from spend and systems. Leave the office. He laughed. You can't cut me off. I'm a partner. Then use your 15% to pay your own vendors, I said. Conversation's over. He opened his mouth again, but I pointed at the door. Out. He stood there a few seconds longer, then shouldered past. He cut too close to Nadia's desk. A single sheet skated to the floor. He didn't look back. Nadia looked at me as she picked them up. What was that about? Nothing I can't handle, I said. Just clearing out more dead weight. Not long after, Dad showed up. His tone was that mix of irritation and fake authority he always used when he thought yelling could fix things. I just got a call from Evan. What the hell are you doing? Cleaning up my accounts, I said. You're making a scene. The wedding's next month. Then maybe use your card next time, I said, gathering the files I needed. Don't walk away from me, Lucas. I walked past him anyway. I'm not walking away. I'm just done being your bank. I left him standing in the hall, red-faced and sputtering. By the afternoon, my phone was blowing up. First Mom's texts, "You've gone too far." Then Tara's posts started appearing on social media. She wrote a long paragraph about how her toxic brother had ruined her special day out of jealousy. The kind of thing people post when they need strangers to take their side. I didn't comment. I didn't even read the whole thing. But by evening, the comments started turning. People were asking who paid for what. Some of our relatives joined in, reminding her who'd covered the deposits. Then screenshots started surfacing. Old photos of me signing the venue paperwork. Messages from her thanking me for paying. I didn't leak any of it, but the internet doesn't need help finding receipts. Mom called 3 times that night. I let it ring. Dad texted once. Fix this before you embarrass everyone. I didn't answer him either. When I came in the next morning, Nadia was already at her desk. She looked nervous. Your family's all over Facebook, she said. I figured, I told her. She hesitated. You okay? I checked the inbox. Another round of refund confirmations had come in overnight. I moved them into the folder without looking at her. Better than before, I said. She nodded and went back to work. For the rest of the day, I kept my head down. Every email, every phone call, every project, I treated it like routine maintenance. That's what it was, really. Maintenance. I wasn't sabotaging anything. I was just removing my name from their chaos. By evening, I shut down the computer and sat for a minute in the quiet. The office was empty again, same as the night I got that text. Only difference was, now the weight was gone. No pending balances, no shared payments, no fake gratitude waiting to expire. Just clean books. My phone buzzed once more. A text from Tara this time. Just a single line. Hope you're happy, asshole. I turned the phone face down on the desk and stood up. They wanted a villain to blame. Fine. They could have one. I locked the door, turned off the lights, and left the building. Silence is louder when they expect an apology. By early summer, everything was cracking. The family group chat that I had muted months ago started lighting up again. I only looked because the notifications wouldn't stop. You owe your sister happiness. You'll embarrass us if you don't fix this. I left it unread after that. The next morning, I started getting calls from vendors we'd worked with for years. The first was Evergreen Supply, the one that handled our lumber orders. The manager sounded uncomfortable. Hey, Lucas, just wanted to double-check the new billing email. It says EH Consulting now. Is that legit? I froze for a second. Where did you get that address? From Gerald. He said it was the updated office contact. Don't send anything to it, I told him. Keep using the old invoices. Nothing changes until I say otherwise. When I hung up, I searched the company inbox. Sure enough, a new thread showed up that morning. Forwarded contracts from Dad's account to Evan at econsulting.com. No explanation, no copy to me or Nadia. Just quietly rerouted money. Evan was trying to build his own side door into our accounts. I walked out to the front office. Nadia was typing fast, nervous. They're acting weird, she said. Your mom and Evan both called asking for the master invoice log. Said they needed to adjust billing dates. Don't send it, I said. She nodded. They said you told me to do it. I didn't. She hesitated. They also want me to sign last month's purchase orders retroactively, backdated to March. Did you? No, I stalled. Good. Keep copies of everything they ask for. Every text, every file. Don't argue with them. Just save it somewhere safe. Her voice dropped. Lucas, this is fraud, isn't it? Maybe, I said. Just protect yourself. I'll handle the rest. I went back to my office, shut the door, and checked the shared drives. Half the company folders had been renamed. Evan's initials were on all of them. EHC_J OBS, EHC_PAYROLL, EHC_CONSULTS. He was trying to build a mirror company out of ours, using our contacts and contracts. By then, the accounting software had already started throwing duplicate vendor warnings in June. Nobody acted on them. That afternoon, Dad barged in without knocking. His shirt was untucked, face red. What the hell are you doing locking us out of our own system? I didn't lock you out, I said. You tried to create new ones. I'm hearing from suppliers saying you're blocking payments. I'm blocking fraud. Watch your mouth, kid, he snapped. You don't call your father a fraud. Then stop approving fake invoices. He glared at me like he couldn't decide whether to yell or throw something. Instead, he said, You're destroying this family. No, I said. You did that when you let Evan touch the books. He slammed the door on the way out. Later that week, I started hearing rumors from foremen at the job sites. Subcontractors complaining they hadn't been paid in 2 months. I checked our expense log. The payments were listed as sent, but the account numbers didn't match our usual vendors. Evan's email trails were all over them. I called one of the subcontractors myself. This is Lucas from Ward Construction. Have you received your payment for May? Not a dime, the guy said. We were told to resubmit the invoice to a new address. Some consulting firm. What name? EH Consulting. I didn't even bother pretending to be surprised anymore. That night, after everyone left, I sat in the dark office with only the monitor lighting the room. I opened every accounting folder I could find, one by one, and downloaded everything. Transactions, pay logs, bank statements, every suspicious entry tied to Evan's name. When it was done, I built an encrypted archive on my drive. It took 3 hours. Every file had to be double-checked, every document renamed and dated. I didn't edit or move anything from the company servers. I just made sure I had a clean record of what actually happened before someone decided to adjust history. By midnight, I had a neat archive of what my family had turned into. fake vendors, rerouted payments, and a growing trail of unpaid bills. The next morning, Nadia looked exhausted. She said Dad had shown up at a job site and started yelling at workers, accusing them of sabotaging the company. He blamed office mistakes for the unpaid subs. Some guys threatened to walk. One already quit on the spot. I told her to stay out of it and keep her head down. Don't take calls from my parents, I said. If they need something, they can come through me. She nodded. Lucas, how bad is it? Bad enough that I'm keeping everything backed up, I said. That's all you need to know. By that weekend, the company atmosphere was dead. Clients were calling about delays. Employees were asking if they'd still get paid, and my parents kept pretending everything was fine. At home, Mom left me another voicemail. I don't understand why you're trying to hurt us. Family should stick together. I deleted it without listening to the rest. The truth was, I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I was just making sure their mess didn't bury me too. That Sunday night, I sat at my kitchen table again. The flash drive from earlier was plugged into my laptop. I opened my encrypted archive and scrolled through the files. Vendor lists, payroll, bank transfers, emails. Hundreds of them. They used to call me the safety net. Now I was just collecting what fell through it. Orbi. By July, things had hit the breaking point. The office felt heavy every day. Quiet hallways, skipped calls, and half the crew walking on eggshells. That morning, I came in early to finish a bid and found Dad and Evan already waiting in my office. Both were standing, arms crossed. It wasn't a meeting, it was an ambush. Dad started talking first. We've had complaints, he said. You're creating instability. From who? I asked. Clients, he snapped. They're nervous. You're cutting people off, questioning invoices, making it look like we're disorganized. I looked at Evan. We are disorganized. Evan jumped in. This attitude is the problem. You're making everyone think something shady's going on. There is something shady going on, I said. You rerouted vendor payments to your shell company. Dad slammed his hand on the desk. Enough. You're not accusing family of theft. I'm stating facts, I said. He stepped closer. You're out of control. You're making us look bad. I stared back at him, then stopped giving people reasons to look. He sighed, switched to his fake calm voice. We need to take a step back. A temporary leave, just until things cool down. I knew what that meant. So you're firing me? No, he said quickly. Just a break. Right, I said. Send me the paperwork. Evan smirked like he'd won something. We'll have our attorney draw it up. I nodded, sat down, and waited while Dad pulled a folder from his briefcase. The papers were already printed. He didn't even try to hide it. Sign here acknowledging voluntary leave, he said. I skimmed it. Standard release, no severance, no liability. I signed. There. Problem solved. Good, Dad said, relaxing a little. We'll handle things from here. I'm sure you will. Before they could say anything else, I turned to my computer, connected my flash drive, and quietly copied the remaining files from the shared system. Project folders, emails, payroll records, the final pieces. Evan noticed and opened his mouth to protest, but I cut him off. It's my work. I'm taking what's mine. When the progress bar hit 100%, I ejected the drive, slid it into my pocket, and stood up. We're done here. Dad tried to say something else about family loyalty, but I was already walking past them. Neither followed. That afternoon, I was home going through emails when the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. Tara. She was standing there with smudged mascara and shaking hands. I opened the door halfway. You ruined everything, she said immediately. You couldn't handle not being in charge, so you burned it all down. No, I said. I stopped paying for your fantasy. You're unbelievable, she snapped. You're supposed to be my brother. I was, right up until you cut me out on a group text. She started crying, then yelling again. It all came out in waves. How the wedding was canceled, how people were talking, how Mom said I'd lost it. I didn't interrupt. I just stood there until she ran out of things to say. Then my laptop dinged from the desk behind me. An email popped up from the venue manager. Per your request, we've reinstated the original wedding booking. Please confirm the payment details. I opened it and read it twice. The message looked exactly like my style. Same subject line, same signature block. I pulled the full headers. The origin IP resolved to my parents' home Wi-Fi. I turned the screen toward Tara. Tell Mom to at least change the subject line next time. She froze, face draining of color. What are you talking about? I'm talking about your family impersonating me to steal back a reservation I paid for. That's not true, she said, but her voice cracked halfway through. I closed the laptop and stepped back from the door. You should go. She stood there for a second, then left without another word. The sound of her car tires peeling off was the only thing that broke the quiet. That night, I went through the company's insurance folder. It was something I'd avoided for years because it was always buried under tax forms and renewal letters. This time, I took my time. Halfway through, I found a key person policy listing me as the insured. 3 months ago, someone filed an ownership change from Ward Construction to Denise Ward, and the beneficiary update that followed named Tara. The premium reimbursements still ran through the company. I sat back in my chair and stared at the page. They'd set it up so if anything happened to me, she'd collect. I laughed once. Not angry, just tired. It felt like confirmation of what I already knew. They didn't see me as family anymore, just a resource. My phone buzzed on the table. A text from Mom. "You'll regret crossing us." I typed back, "Already don't." Then I set the phone down and opened a new spreadsheet. I named it Clean Report July, something a court reporter could pronounce without asking twice. I started listing every transaction tied to me. Loans, reimbursements, deposits, refunds, everything. No edits, no opinions. Just the truth. I tagged the file in my notes as Exhibit B. When I finished, I saved it twice, once locally, once on the drive. They thought I'd fight, but there was nothing left to argue about. They wanted chaos. I wanted records. They thought I'd fight. I just started documenting. By fall, the Ward family was pretending everything was fine again. Tara and Evan had a quick courthouse wedding, no dress, no guests, just a picture in front of a brick wall and a caption that said, "Simple love greater than big drama." It looked like a hostage photo. I didn't comment, didn't text. A week later, she messaged me anyway. "Can I borrow $5,000 to get ahead on bills? Evan's commission hasn't cleared yet." I stared at the message for a minute, then replied, "Sure, you'll get a loan agreement shortly." I opened a contract template from my files, added her name, set it at 6% interest, 6 months, and a collateral clause using her engagement ring as security if the loan defaulted. No tricks, just clean, legal language. I signed it and sent it as a PDF. 2 hours later, the document came back with her digital signature at the bottom. No message attached. I transferred the money. No emojis, no congrats. Business only. The next morning, I met Nadia at a diner near the industrial park. She looked tired but calm. I slid 2 thin folders across the table. One labeled refunds confirmed, the other a compiled packet of company accounts. She glanced at them, then at me. "You sure you want me handling this?" "Yes," I said. "Submit everything clean. No favors for anyone. Not for me, not for them." She opened the folders, flipping through pages. "There are a lot of mismatched numbers here." "I know. Don't fix them. Just file them the right way." She nodded slowly. "This is going to raise questions." "Good," I said. We finished breakfast mostly in silence. When we got up to leave, she hesitated. "Lucas, if this goes south, they're going to blame you." "They already did," I said. "This just gives them a reason they can't argue with." Over the next few weeks, Nadia worked through the company's year-end bookkeeping. She didn't hide anything. Every duplicate invoice, every fake vendor, every expense under Evan's name. The system's reconciliation software automatically flagged the inconsistencies. Once that happened, everything else was out of our hands. It didn't take long. Within 10 days, she forwarded me a short email from our accounting software provider. The subject line read, "Account irregularities detected. Flagged to your connected external CPA. An audit-ready packet is available upon request." She added one line underneath, "It's done." I replied, "Thank you." That was it. No big speech, no panic. Just a process doing what it was built to do, record and correct. A few days later, I boxed up some things for Tara. I didn't owe her a gift, but I wanted to close the loop. I used a matte black box, simple and neat. Inside, I placed a printed copy of her signed loan agreement, the original refund receipt from the wedding venue, a small metal plaque engraved with 3 words, "Paid in full, eventually." I left the box with the front desk clerk at her apartment building. No note. She'd understand it either way. That same evening, my phone buzzed with a voicemail. Victor Hale, the family lawyer, sounding cautious. "Hey, Lucas. Just a heads up, the auditors requested full company records. Not sure what triggered it, but it's official now. Call me back when you can." I didn't call him back. I listened once, saved it, and hit delete. At that point, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even curious about how it would play out. I'd spent months watching my family twist every situation to their advantage. Now the system they'd abused was finally paying attention. It wasn't revenge. It was math. Every action had a record, every lie had a timestamp, and all I did was stop cleaning their mess. Work quieted down after that. I still had side projects and a few loyal clients who followed me out of the company. I didn't tell anyone what happened. I just kept working, kept organizing, kept documenting. Nadia stopped by with a flash drive, backup copies, just in case. That weekend, I stashed it in my safe and labeled it Company, 2025, Final. A week later, I heard from a mutual contact that Evan had been panicking about tax questions. He was calling everyone he knew, saying the system glitched and mixed up their accounts. Typical. My parents were still pretending nothing was wrong, telling friends that some clerical issue had delayed payroll. I didn't say a word. The truth doesn't need help. That night, sitting at my kitchen table again, I opened a fresh spreadsheet. I titled it Post Company Assets and listed my balances, savings, and pending projects. All clean. All honest. The phone buzzed again. A text from Mom this time. Just one line. You should fix this before it gets worse. I didn't respond. There was nothing to fix. I turned off my phone, closed the laptop, and leaned back in my chair. They built their empire on silence and favors. I built my peace on paperwork. I didn't tip anyone off. I just stopped lying for them. By winter, the letters started coming. Thick white envelopes stamped with state seals and long reference numbers. They went straight to the ward house first. Requests for documentation, tax corrections, and account reviews. Every week, another one showed up. A friend who still worked in the office told me the stack on Dad's desk looked like a small phone book. He was yelling every morning now, pacing between his office and the break room, blaming clerical mistakes and snitches. Then it hit the rest of them. Tara's car got repossessed right out of her office parking lot. Someone filmed it and posted it online. She tried to spin it with a caption, dealing with haters and financial stress, but staying positive. The comments were brutal. Mom took to Facebook again, claiming the unfair system was targeting small family businesses. She called herself a mother wronged by bureaucracy. Dad followed with his own rant about betrayal by your own blood. People shared screenshots of both posts with laughing emojis. By January, ward construction was unofficially dead. Suppliers were gossiping about unpaid balances, fake invoices, and missing checks. Clients backed out of contracts. The name Ward became a warning, not a reference. I stayed quiet. I still had copies of everything, but I didn't need to use them. The truth was already working on its own. Then came the lawsuit. A courier showed up at my door with a thick folder stamped civil complaint. The Wards, meaning my parents and Evan, were suing me for business sabotage and intentional interference with operations. I read through it once. The claims were vague, mostly emotion wrapped in legal terms. They wanted damages, reputation repair, even court fees. I called the number listed for their attorney, Victor Hale. "Did you really file this?" I asked. He sighed. "They insisted." I advised against it. "When's deposition?" "2 weeks." He paused before hanging up. "Lucas, you might actually want to come to this one." The deposition was held in a plain downtown office. No judge, no drama. Just a long table, a court reporter, and a pile of folders. My parents sat on one side, arms crossed, faces tight. Evan looked like he hadn't slept in days. Tara didn't show. Their lawyer started by reading statements about how I'd sabotaged systems, restricted access, and triggered a financial review out of revenge. When it was my turn, I said one line. I left in July. The system started flagging vendor discrepancies in June. The formal audit kicked off in September. I didn't trigger anything. My attorney slid an exhibit across the table. "That's true," he said. The accounting platform began auto-flagging those discrepancies in June, before Mr. Ward left. The external audit engagement began in September. That sequence is documented. Dad's face went pale. Mom whispered something under her breath. Evan just stared at the table. Their lawyer tried to object, but my attorney kept talking. "For the record, there's documentation of all transactions, and none point to Lucas Ward as the source of the issue." The court reporter paused, just long enough to feel the air go out of the room. Their lawyer closed his folder. "No further questions." We adjourned. On the way out, my attorney slid 2 folders across the table. Refunds confirmed, marked as Exhibit A, and clean report R July as Exhibit B. No speeches, just labels. Afterward, Dad caught up with me in the hallway. His voice shook. "You destroyed this family's name." I looked at him. I didn't ruin anything. I balanced it. He didn't answer. He just walked away, muttering about loyalty. That afternoon, I signed my final separation papers. The company owed me for outstanding vacation pay and a small percentage of old projects. I took the payout, direct deposit only, and that was the end of it. A week later, their attorney filed a notice of voluntary dismissal. By February, I'd registered my new company, Ward Ledger Group. One person, one desk, one laptop. I didn't want crews or overhead, just small business clients who wanted clean books and honest advice. I worked quietly out of a rented office downtown. A few old contacts found me through word of mouth. The work wasn't flashy, but it was solid. Nadia helped me set up the systems. She was doing freelance accounting by then. Feels weird starting over, she said one night while we were going over new client files. It's better this way, I told her. Smaller, cleaner. She smiled. And quieter. Exactly. The next morning, I walked into my small office, made coffee, and opened my client dashboard. The sun hit the blinds just right, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I owed anyone anything. They called it betrayal. I call it balance. I didn't burn the bridge, I just stopped carrying them across. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.